Sorry, they lost the gavel, so there's no gavel tonight. So thanks everyone for coming tonight. Tonight is our first meeting back. Thank you. That was sort of like a gavel. Our first meeting back since school started. This is our committee of the whole meeting. So for anyone new, I presume we might have some new people out here. For anyone, the committee of the whole is basically our working session. So for years, for many of us that were on the board, we would work in subcommittees. So you have multiple subcommittees where you would talk about prior to the public meeting that we're having next Wednesday. So this is basically us working in public, you could say, minus talking about personnel and other private matters that we aren't able to discuss in public. So we were just in executive session. So can I get a motion to return to public session, please? Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. That's mine. Thank you. Call to order. Opening statement. Meetings of the board are open to the public, and all members of the community should feel free to participate. There is one opportunity for the public to speak. Any individual desiring to speak shall give his or her name, address, and the group, if any, that is represented. The presentation shall be as brief as possible, but no more than 3 minutes per individual. There are certain matters that may be brought before the board that cannot be immediately addressed in public. Such matters may be referred by the president to a board committee and/or to the superintendent for consideration and/or resolution. The board vests in its president or other presiding officer authority to terminate the remarks of any individual if he or she deems it in the best interest of those present to do so. Roll call.
Mr. Reddy?
Here.
Mr. Wall?
Here.
Mrs. Bramonti? Here. Mrs. Zhang?
Here.
Dr. Kalor?
Here.
Mrs. DeSillo? Here. Mr. Buckley?
Here.
Mr. Damari?
Here.
Mr. Mann?
Here.
No quorum.
Thank you. Can we rise for a flag salute? Thank you. All right. So item I, questions or comments from the public. Do we usually do that to start? Yeah. So a lot of you are out there. You usually have to wait till 9, 10 o'clock. So tonight we sort of moved around in case there's people that wanted to speak. So if you'd like to speak, please come to the podium, your name, your address, and please try to keep it to a couple of minutes. I don't have a gavel, but I'll try to say, hey, 30 seconds, wrap it up or something like that, just because we might have a handful of people that might want to speak tonight. And do know that next Wednesday we'll be having our next public meeting. That's usually our action resolution meeting. So just so you know, thank you.
Testing. Allison Lopresti, 49 Ladwood Drive. I'm a candidate for the Holmdel Board of Education, and I'm running alongside Anthony Lebecci and Reham Taha. Tonight, I'm here to speak about policy 5756. For any parent that doesn't know, policy 5756 states that school staff members are not required to notify a parent or guardian if a child wants to change his or her gender identity or expression. Think of all the things regarding your child that the school has to tell you about or ask permission for, administering Benadryl and Tylenol, for example. But 5756 does not require the school to inform the parent or guardian if a child says they are struggling with or wants to change their gender. Holmdel, like most districts in New Jersey, relies on a third-party policy writing service, Strauss Esme, to provide policy updates relating to New Jersey Department of Education directives or guidance. In 2019, Strauss Esme put out policy 5756 and classified it as mandatory, when in fact it was merely guidance from the Department of Education. Holmdel adopted the policy verbatim, seemingly without conducting any due diligence, no questioning, and no independent review or challenge. I have 3 questions for all board members. Would you like to see Holmdel continue to enforce policy 5756 as mandatory, meaning the school does not inform parents if their child wants to change their gender? Or would you like to see the policy rescinded so that our schools must inform parents? Each board member should make clear his or her stance on policy 5756. Number 2, do you think Holmdel should reconsider its continued relationship with Strauss Esme, since we know that it intentionally misclassified policy 5756 as mandatory when it was in fact only guidance? And number 3, did the board conduct any independent review of the policy before adopting it in Holmdel? Our bracket believes the board must take action and rescind policy 5756. We must do better.
Thank you for your comments. I can tell you the board won't be answering your questions because unfortunately this isn't a back and forth dialogue the way we do it. The way the board communicates is through policy and is also through resolution. I can tell you to one of your questions is sort of because of this, we've sort of started an ad hoc policy committee. I think the first meeting is October 4th. Is that correct? So, because if you look in our district, if you look on the website, there are approximately, I forget the exact number, but it's like 180 to 200 policies out there, all divided by 10 different groups. And I'd be the first to say, who's been on the board probably the longest sitting up here, I don't know every policy. I absolutely don't know every policy. And as Vice President Wall said last month, a lot of times what would happen is we would get all these policies, and when they're labeled mandatory, a lot of times we're like say, okay, we have no choice, but we have to approve these because the state's saying they're mandatory. And obviously there's been some discussions and conversations and news stories about how mandatory is sometimes not mandatory. And those are things that we're working through as a board, discussing all those things. So I can tell you, this is definitely has a lot more light shined upon it. I know our last action item today, or our last agenda item, is to talk about that policy. So, you could stay here and listen to the board discuss and go from there. But thank you for your comments. And, I think everyone is talking about some of the same stuff here. So thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Ron Mack. I'm from Matawan. I was at the Hanover School Board meeting last Monday where they voted 6-0 to rescind 5756 because you are exactly correct. It was deliberately misportrayed as mandatory with an M in the bottom. The Deputy Attorney General 2 weeks ago or last week rescinded it, or he said it was a guideline. It is not mandatory. So she's actually 100% correct. And I want to say that who's outside counsel here? Are they here? Okay. Hi. Yeah, I'd like you to look into this because there's several things. This is brand new territory. This has never been done in the United States, let alone New Jersey. And we have parental rights. We've all heard about that regarding 5756, which is the most famous policy in New Jersey, I think, at the moment. Also, Google this, Chloe Cole, C-H-L-O-E, Cole, C-O-L-E. Do an investigation on what happens when these transgender surgeries are performed in minors, and then that minor 5 years later becomes an adult and starts suing everybody in line, starting with the doctors and ending up, if you read the paper today, with school members and counselors. Counselors are being added like crazy, and most of them, the vast majority, do not have medical degrees. We have no business advising transgender going down this road when cutting off minors' breasts for females and genitals and castration. This is exactly what's going. This is where it doesn't always end up, but this is where it starts, and they come back and sue everybody as a minor that counseled them to go this way. School counselors without medical degrees have no business going down this road because they're going to come back. It's a $2.1 billion industry today, and it's growing, and the legal part of it is just following right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments.
Barbara Singer, 5 Deerfield Road. I just want to address a couple of things we heard about what happened in Hanover. Since the board voted on that policy, it went back to the court and there's been a further decision. So that information is not up to date that we were just given. I'm not sure where this fear is coming from about surgeries. I can't imagine. I personally spoken to most of you. I don't think any of you are sending our kids for surgeries at any age. I don't think our school counselors are bringing kids for surgeries. The comment is just baffling to me that that's what anybody thinks is going on, especially in Holmdel. So other than that, first I'd like to say, I personally have found Holmdel to be an accepting, inclusive town overall, with a major focus on our kids and their futures. I also have found Holmdel to be a town that involves parents and believes in parental rights. I myself have had to advocate as a parent and assert those parental rights. Fortunately for me, we had a Board of Ed that was responsive to my requests at the time. Maybe Mr. Reddy, maybe Mr. Wall were on the board back then. It was over 10 years ago. And I believe our current board is even more focused on the things a Board of Ed should be focused on. And that's certainly not bringing our children for surgeries. So I really, as an attorney, am not fearful that that's something we will be sued for. Not knowing where this conversation amongst yourselves will lead tonight, but based on conversations I have heard in the other towns, I just want to focus our goal of the children's well-being and the parental relationship and desire to know their kids. These are not mutually exclusive concepts. If a child has a discussion with someone at school about being trans, that person becomes a helpful resource to bridging the gap between the parent and the child who is concerned or worse, fearful of telling their parent. The school could be a conduit to making the child more comfortable and working out a way for the child to give this information from the parent. You've all been on this board long enough to know not every home is the same. Not everyone parents the same. So we're really not talking here about where the parent is telling the child and the family is working together. We're really talking about probably a handful of situations over time where this could be a problem for the child. So that's really where the focus is, where there is a big issue. One thing I do know, and I think everybody will recognize, is if the child knows that if they come to this person they perceive as safe in the school to talk to, but they know that person will have to tell their parents, then they just won't come to school and tell that person. Now you've literally cut off any connection between this kid and the parent. And who's telling the parents then? Nobody. So I feel like it's a self-defeating policy to require the notification to have to be made. I feel we as a school district, we have so many resources for kids in all different situations. And I feel this is a situation where we can come together and actually be the bridge here to help give parents this information that they want, yet to also support the child who may need a couple of adults to sit down with them when they talk to the parent. Whatever it is, every situation will be different. But I feel like, let's, what do they say, be part of the solution. Let's not further the problem when there's no communication. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
Karen, excuse me, Karen Strickland, 26 Hayward Hills Drive. Two issues. One is I'm very happy to see your discussion about Crawford Hill. Thank you, Mr. Wall, for putting that on the agenda. I think that's really important. And I'm happy to see you guys going in that direction. Secondly, I had heard there's going to be some discussion about the policy 5756. So I downloaded the policy. I myself was on the school board for 6 years and I sat right where you sat. And I think it's really very difficult to deal with all the different conflicting ideas and opinions of people. But in looking at this policy, what really strikes me is how beautiful the language is. The board adopts this policy to help school and district administrators take steps to create an inclusive environment in which transgender and gender nonconforming students feel safe and supported, and to ensure each school provides equal educational opportunities for all students. And it seems to me, I had 4 children who went through the Holmdel School District. They're all went to college and graduated and working. And the beauty of this district is the faculty and the staff. We have professionals here who know what they're doing. And I kind of think that the job of the school board is to support the administration, to support the faculty, to give them the resources they need to help all students, to make sure all students are safe. And I think that you should trust the professionals that you hire. If you can't trust them to know when to talk to parents or when not to talk to parents, you should fire that professional, because these are the people in the front line and you have to take care of all the students. So please take care of your staff and give them the resources they need to protect all the students, and don't get rid of really good policies. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. It's good to see you tonight. Old school member. Thank you, Ms. King.
Hi, Denise King, President of Holmdel Township Education Association. I want to clarify a few things as I'm reading this policy. The first beginning of the policy, if you actually read it, it just is definitions that any one of us could Google and find on the internet. So like the first page of the policy is just explaining the different views, transgender. Then you read through the policy and you're I hate to say it, you're trying to go on fear and you're making it sound like teachers are creating these different environments. We love our kids. We want them to feel safe in our schools. We want them to know that if they have an issue, they can come to us. And if you read the policy carefully, that they look at, they says they do not have to. However, they have to consult, the administration will consult with the legal counsel in the event they're concerned that the child's safety is not going to be adhered to at home if they come out as transgendered. So if you read through the policy, you're starting to make it out like it's this fear thing. And by the way, this policy has been in place since 2019. So 2019, we're in 2023, and all of a sudden it's like a soundbite. The only thing that this policy does is allows the district to be informed about students, student rights, and the ability to support students and care for them and make them feel safe. We look at suicide as one of the issues, and I just watched all my vector training on suicide, and one of the main issues is about children's sexual identity. And when we look at that, we want to be able to support children to make decisions. And I'm not saying we're giving them any information. I'm not saying I'm telling them. All of us may not always agree, right? But we're here to agree on one thing. The one thing is we're here to support those children, make sure they get a good, solid education, and that we are teaching them the curriculum that is available in the district. These other things that we're making main issues are not main issues when a policy's been in place for this long. Why are we getting rid of something? If it was brand new, because believe me, I've been through here long enough to read the brand new policies, then I have a reason to understand why it's such a big deal. It doesn't say that you're not going to tell anything. It says you don't have to. It says you don't have to. However, the building administration and the superintendent will speak with legal counsel, because maybe your house is loving and conservating, but not every household is like that. And you have children that are afraid. And do you really want children to be afraid of being able to be who they truly are? We should care for them. We should educate them and make sure that they understand what they're doing in math class, in science class, in social studies, history, world civics, whatever we're teaching them, that's what we're focusing on. We're not focusing on these issues that you think we are. We're focusing on the subject matter that we're teaching. And that's what we're doing. And the teaching is based off the curriculum that we have been established through professionals that know what they're doing, vetted by the board who reads them before they're approved. So I really wasn't planning on speaking about this issue, but I care about the kids I teach. And I loved every single one of them from the time that they were 5 years old to adults. Some of them still contact me today, and they're in their 20s and 30s. They're happy to see me, and I'm happy to see them. We want them to be happy, healthy, and successful. That's number one. But a policy that bring up like it's a soundbite when it's been here for this many years is concerning to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. King.
Hello, my name is Sloan Timpson. I'm from Middletown, New Jersey. I've attended several of these Board of Education meetings in Monmouth County over the last few months. I'll tell you what I've learned. I've learned watching countless children stand up for their rights as individuals and then having board members not only not acknowledge them, but vote away their rights, that it was never about protecting children. I've listened to stories from the LGBTQ plus community about how they came out. Some weren't as fortunate as others to be accepted, but they all had one thought in common, and that's that they felt comfortable coming out on their own timeline and not one that would be forced through the Board of Education. I've learned that patience, which is something we are taught at an early age, is something we as adults need more of when it comes to the life-altering decisions of our children. I've learned that there are districts out there who are failing their students by not meeting state standards and falling short in their budget for other important things usually provided to students and teachers. Instead, some are deciding to push through a policy that has never been contested before at the cost to students, teachers, and taxpayers. I've listened to a student ask, why aren't we evolving as a society? And how actions like taking away rights of transgender children are only setting us back. I've learned we are failing the next generation if we go through with this. I've learned that many on these boards haven't even educated themselves on what it means to be transgender, and they are fearful it will somehow affect their children. As the parent of a transgender child, I can tell you nothing is done in a careless manner. Therapy and social transition are done first, and nothing is done against the will of my child. I wish I could say the same is true when it comes to changing any part of this policy. By following other districts into this domino effect, you are just joining in telling children they can't ever express who they are. You're asking more of your teachers and counselors to do your dirty work. What I've learned is that at the end of this battle, you will have further splintered a school community that should be united in letting our children learn, grow, and evolve. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Teresa Sperber. I'm a Middletown resident. I'm actually not speaking for myself right now, but on behalf of my 11-year-old daughter who desperately wanted to come, but was not allowed because it would have kept her up past her bedtime. Okay, so here I go. I listened to her practice it at home before I came. I am Olive Sperber. I am 11 years old and in 5th grade. I am super bummed that my mom has to be here tonight because we were supposed to watch Gilmore Girls. But I understand that it's really important because I want both of us to be on the right side of history. But I do have some questions. And my questions are why? Why am I 1 decade and 1 year old and I better understand the concepts of diversity and inclusion and human rights and acceptance than many of the grown-ups around me and many of the grown-ups here tonight? Why, give me a second, I can't remember. Why do I have to miss Gilmore Girls so that you can create a problem that doesn't exist? If you could, I would like to respectfully ask that you continue to coast as a board and do no harm so that, one second, so that I can find out who Rory Gilmore ends up with, whether it be Jess or Dean, and I hope it's Dean. Nope, sorry, I hope it's Jess because I think he's way cuter. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'm gonna put this up a little. Hi, my name is Jacob Pender from Rutgers, New Brunswick, and I'm here to talk tonight a little bit about parents' rights and just why the people who advocate for parents' rights are actually advocating against a policy that protects parents' rights. Policy 5756 protects against children being forced and outed by teachers and by members of school faculty to their parents. That is exactly what repealing this policy would do. We already know that there's an injunction in multiple districts against putting in a policy that would forcibly out these students. So it doesn't make any sense to repeal one that protects against it. Second, on the matter of parents' rights, it is so important that a parent gets to choose how they raise their child. The way a parent raises their child is of utmost importance. It's not up to a teacher, it's not up to a school, it is up to a parent to raise their child with the ideals of trust, with the ideals of honesty, with the ideals of acceptance and being there for their child no matter what. Not all parents are like this, though. Not all parents choose to raise their children like this, and that is their choice. However, that must be up to that parent to make that decision, not the school, not a teacher. It is a very easy decision because the policy that would forcibly out children to their parents doesn't make any sense. If a child is coming out to their teacher, it should be known that they have already come out to their parents, because parents who have raised them for their entire lifetime, not just 9 months at the very most, that's as much time as a child has with their teacher, a parent who has raised them for their entire lifetime, it should be recognized that a child would come out to their parent first. If the child chooses and is more comfortable coming out to a teacher, someone who that they see only for a few hours a day, who doesn't raise them, who has only known them for a few months, if they feel more comfortable coming out to them than the parent, then there is an issue there. There is an issue with that child at home not having those ideals of honesty, not having those ideals of acceptance at home. And that is okay. But it is not up to the schools to go into the homes of parents and say, we are forcing these ideals onto your parents, into your family, into your home life. That is not where the school belongs. That is not where a teacher belongs. That is why children don't live at school. They don't live with teachers. They live with their parents, and it is up to the parents to raise their children when they are at home the way that they want. So that is why policy 5756 is very important. There's no need to repeal it. If there is additional plans to create a policy that forcibly outs students despite the injunctions, I think that that should be a completely different discussion. But repealing policy 5756 does nothing other than provide fear and attack parental rights. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Carolyn Mack, and I live in Matawan. I do want to encourage you to repeal 5756. It might be an encouragement for you to know that there was a Monmouth poll taken recently, just in August, and it reveals that a majority of parents are broadly opposed to teaching gender identity before high school, and they are not in agreement with attempts to remove local autonomy and parental authority. Not surprisingly, they believe use of bathrooms and participation in sports should be based on gender, not a fluid and changing identity of gender. I thought this was interesting. 77% of middle and high school schools, they believe, should be required to notify parents if their child wants to begin identifying as a different gender. This poll is from August 10th to 14th, Monmouth University, 814 New Jersey adults. I also want to point out that we talk about safety, and that's important when our kids are in school. The parents need to feel confident that their kids are safe, and the kids that are in class and using bathrooms need to feel that they're safe. This policy does not bring any feeling of safety or security to the classroom or to the school, because now children, especially girls, we hear are afraid to use the bathroom. They're afraid a boy is going to be in there. They're holding it all day until they get home, or they're lining up at the nurse's bathroom. So we've done this. We've turned something upside down, something as simple as using a bathroom, and girls being able to go into the locker room and not be worried that a boy will be in there. turning it upside down for what, 2 or 3 or 4% of the population, of the school population. And this is a recent thing, this identifying as trans. As a parent and a grandparent, now I wonder where this has come from. That and we know it's coming from the classroom, but I mean where beyond that. If we go back to where it's originating, it would be interested to know. I do think it's very unfortunate that even though, yes, this policy has been around since 2019, we had COVID, from starting in 2020. So parents and children were at home and parents weren't aware. So it might seem very old to some of the teachers and people here, but to parents, they're more recently, I think within the last year, finding out about this policy. Also, talking about being on the right side of history, I believe you're on the right side of history when you say we are going to stand behind parents and the parental authority, that structure, that family structure of a mom and a dad making decisions about their children. I believe if a child wants Tylenol at school, I think the parent gets a phone call. So why not for something as major as a kid that's questioning their gender? There's a verse in Proverbs that says, truth stands the test of time, but lies are soon exposed. I think the truth and the goodness of a parent that raises a child stands the test of time. And I think you're on the right side of history if you vote to rescind this policy. I think the policy is on the wrong side of history, on thousands of years of history of the nuclear family and a child being protected within that family. Yeah, I just want to encourage you to repeal it. I think it's the only right thing to do. And I think if we want children to feel safe at school, they have to be able to use a bathroom and a locker room and play a girl's sport or a boy's sport. Girls especially, without worrying about boys and restrooms and playing sports alongside them and possibly injuring them. So thank you.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Sabrina Wilhelm. I am from Red Bank, New Jersey. I have been a parent in Monmouth County for the last almost 14 years. I am speaking in support of 5756 as it is written. As a parent, one of the things that I appreciate about the policy is that it puts the safety of students ahead of the ego of potentially unsafe parents. That impacts all of our students, cis and non-cis, to go along with this idea that there's a problem with trans kids running amok is to instill fear, or it instills fear in all of our students, and that they will feel like school isn't safe for them. And when they feel like school isn't safe, where can they feel safe if they're not safe at home? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Judy Bacon. I live in Marlborough, but I'm speaking for the Holmdel Community UCC, which has written a statement that says, as people of faith and members of the United Church of Christ, we hold fast to God's commandment to love our neighbors. Our transgender and non-binary adults and youth neighbors in Christ are under attack. It is our responsibility as people of faith to raise our voices in support, justice, and equity for trans and non-binary people everywhere. In this room, we share common ground. We all want our children's safety, emotional and physical well-being, and eventually flourish as successful adults. We want our children to be safe at school where they spend so much of their young lives. Adolescents navigate questions of gender identity and sexual orientation before and during puberty. Sometimes the discovery is quick and self-evident. More often it's confusing. Supportive parents with strong bonds of trust with their children are crucial source of understanding and guidance, but not all children are blessed with a supportive, nurturing home. Sometimes, for any number of reasons, parents are disparaging, hostile, and even dangerous in their rejection of their child's questions and concerns. Transgender and queer youth without support are far more likely to show poor mental health, self-injure, and develop suicidal ideation. Repealing 5756 will remove a crucial safety net from students. Informing parents against a student's wishes could cause great harm. There have been too many tragedies, and suicide is an epidemic among the LGBTQIA+ youth. Sometimes school provides the only safe harbor a student has. As Council of Conference Ministers of the UCC states, the lives of trans and non-binary people are precious. They are God's beloved children, our siblings, created like all of us for a life free from hatred and recrimination. The church cannot be silent while our trans and non-binary youth and their parents are subjected to abuse and exposed to public defamation. As leaders of the United Church of Christ, we want every person of transgender or non-binary experience to know this: you are beloved by God. No earthly power can separate you from God's love. God created you perfectly. Your gender identity or expression is God's gift to you and to the world. Thank you.
Guys, I wasn't planning on being here, but first I have to say, I am so glad I lost last year. I had a baby.
Can you
I'm sorry.
name and
Hey
address,
guys,
please?
I'm Matt Weisfeld. Been in Holmdel forever. Like literally, I'm back in the house that
Your
I
address?
grew up in. Too much?
Your address.
Oh, 10
Sorry.
Riverside Lane,
Thank you, Matt.
cross street from Holmdel Park. Guys, I'm tired. I can't believe we're still talking about this stuff. We've got a great board over here. I think. I hope so. We have some experience over here. And every freaking meeting is about sexuality and trans and everything. Can we just not be censoring myself? Ooh. Can we not be jerks? Can we figure out how we do that? Can we, whatever that means? I don't know what that means. Can we get a club? Can we get a support group? Can we do something? Because again, there are people here who are very pissed and you're valid. I don't know what that means in the sense of how to make this work. But can we talk about engineering? Can we talk about, guys, I'm teaching at Monmouth University. The deal I made was if I lost, so this is, Chris, this is your fault. You gave me more responsibility, damn it. If I lost the BOE, I was going to teach at Monmouth. 1 week later, I get the phone call. I've been teaching technology and business, and I'm scared. They're great kids. The leadership, the chutzpah, that's the appropriate word, right? Anyway, it's just the idea. I mean, like, I shook their hand, and I'm like, that's your handshake? Because all we do is talk about this stuff. We were killing it. We have a bunch of people who graduate. Raise your hand if you graduated from Holmdel High School. How freaking easy was college? For me, I got to sleep, I got to have a social life, and I got great grades, and I came out and I freaking killed it. And I want my daughter to kill it. And I just had a son last week, and he's freaking amazing. And I want him to kill it. Holmdel made my life very easy, and frankly, I know you're not supposed to say this stuff, very successful. I'm wearing flip-flops anywhere I want because I don't care. Because I was able to be successful because of the education that Miss King, is she still here? I think I was in your first class. And how the hell does Mrs. Graham never age? Can we find this out? I was in her first class. I'm digressing, guys, because this is a serious matter for those who are having this issue. And guys, don't get lost. I'm saying it. Don't get lost in this bullshit. Don't get lost in this bullshit. The whole freaking campaign, right, is about, we missed a sex point. We have to get this or whatever. and it's valid and true because I don't want my kids dealing with anything they shouldn't be dealing with. Guys, we have the wrong robotics team. We've got the wrong one. I'm still listed as the coach. This was, well, maybe I should hold on to this in case I run for Board of Ed. Screw that. I want you to know that Holmdel still has me, the guy who has not worked here for 10 freaking years, listed as the FRC robotics coach. Please, guys, we got to get on FRC because if FRC, the kids could go to any freaking college. FTC is like the starting group. That's what I want the meetings to be about again. And again, valid, all that stuff. And I'm going on my little thing here because I got to go teach a karate class now. Guys, I'm doing karate for free for October because I'm a little crazy. So please, guys, let's get Holmdel back to what we used to be with all this great talent and experience and life over here. So thank you, Matt Weisfeld. Oh, and again, you know what? No, I'm going to stop there. Let's just leave it at that. Thank you, guys. Have a great night.
Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
Can I comment to Matt? Pete.
No, let's just wait till the public finishes. Thank you.
I could come back because I feel like it's going to be a while. You want me to like bring food for you guys?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
No,
Here-
stop,
here-
stop, stop. This isn't a dialogue between the board and the community right now. So
I will
thank
just
you.
say, if it's going to lead to a lawsuit, more distraction, and tax dollars, do what you got to do, guys, to protect the students, not have us deal with nonsense. I'm saying it because I just don't know enough about this. I don't want us to deal with a lawsuit because we're doing things half-cocked, whatever that means. If we have to go down a diplomatic way and then fight them, if need be, I'm not saying anything, whatever, let's just avoid a lawsuit. Let's keep the property tax low, but the value high. And let's not get lost in the weeds again. So whatever that means. So thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right. Well, I think we got one more.
How you doing? Tom Santora. I'm from Holmdel, 8 Willow Road. Can I ask a question or is it just a statement?
It's public comment, so your statements are taken in. If the
Got it,
board
okay.
decides that it'll address it, it'll be after the fact.
I have a 4-year-old daughter. And would policy 5756, if my daughter wanted to change her name and wanted to change her gender, she's in Village, would the teacher be obligated to tell me as her parent? No. Okay. Okay. So a 4-year-old can make a decision to change her name without notifying the parent. Okay. Can any male use the bathroom with my 4-year-old daughter? Do we know?
Sir, this is for public comment.
Got-
Board will
okay, all
take
right,
it
okay,
in,
I didn't
and
know,
they'll
okay, I didn't know.
respond to your
Okay.
comments.
You were all elected to the Board of Ed to protect our children of the community, and not to blindly follow the political agenda from the bureaucrats in Trenton. And Holmdel's a special place. We moved here primarily because of the school system, how exceptional it is. So, you know, we want to give our kids the best life and the best chance of success. So we should be advocating for more dialogue between parents and teachers instead of less. So with that being said, I would recommend that if policy 5756 isn't mandatory, that we repeal it. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Move the mic quite down. Hi, members of the board. I'm Chandana Rao at 57 Oaks Drive. I've seen all of you remote, but this is the first time I'm coming in person.
Can you speak closer
Of
to the
course.
microphone?
Is this
Thank you.
better? It's the first time I'm speaking to the entire board in
Thank you.
person. My concern is as follows. I think that with the fact that there are lawsuits out pending, and the fact that there is an injunction in place, I think it makes sense for Holmdel to take a pause and see how the Attorney General's actions play out. In that manner, Holmdel can learn about the strategies used by the Attorney General or just what's happening. And in that regard, Holmdel will be better informed of the positions they ought to take. As I understand, this current policy is that where the teacher has discretion, if I understand it correctly. As a result, thus far, Holmdel has been in the press for all great things, right? We made the New York Times. Whatever you feel about the Times, we made it because we're doing great work here. We are known for, being the place of excellent, education, STEM, and having been here for a long time, having known intimately what the administration, the board has been doing so positively for the school, I feel that we're heading in the right direction. And I'm concerned that any definitive vote at this juncture would throw a monkey wrench in the positive plans of Holmdel. I think the board and the administration have done excellent work thus far in steering the ship in the right direction. Our ranks have gone up, which is fantastic, which I know that many of you have grown up in Holmdel and you have availed yourself of a terrific education. I also note that Terrence Wall posted a really fascinating moonshot, right, about taking the Nokia building and turning it into a STEM hub, which I think is really fascinating. And those are the kind of dialogues and conversations Holmdel ought to be having. I totally understand and I respect the concern that many parents have about issues of gender. I'm still learning. This is new for me, right? As it is for many parents, I believe. But I feel that at this juncture, to take a definitive vote may be premature, given the fact that there are injunctions in place, given the fact that there are lawsuits happening with 3 districts. I think we ought to sort of see how things transpire and then later address it once we have more information and once we see how the cases play out. So in sum, I really feel that we're heading in the right direction. I was, honored to be part of a committee that the administration and the board put together to sort of improve Holmdel schools. It was such a fantastic dialogue. The board members were there, the administration was there. It made me feel so excited to be part of a school system that cares about its students' education. I just don't think this is the right time for any vote that will distract us. That is not to say I am sort of I'm diminishing the importance of this question. I just feel that, to use the common parlance, you should kick that can down the road and see how things play out with the current lawsuits. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Anthony Lebecci, 6 Great Myrtle Drive. It's really nice to see all the people that are not from Holmdel here. Thank you for coming and voicing your opinion. But really, I want to keep this short because ultimately, at the end of the day, let's not look at this whole situation, what's going on in our world. But let's just look at this 5657 or 5756, whatever we want to call it. Don't take my right as a parent away. That's the bottom line. Okay? That's what I want you to not do. You don't want it taken away from your kids, and I don't want it taken away from mine. So let's just be realistic here, what's happening. Okay? You need to call me for everything that happens with my kid, from my pre-K to my first grader to my 4th grader, everything that they do in school, good, bad, the ugly, indifferent. Don't take my right away for one particular thing that you feel that all of a sudden is now some type of buzz in the world. So please just use your common sense and vote the right way today. Okay? Thank you.
Good evening. Alicia Unison, 8 Riverside Lane. I ran for the board last year. I spoke to many of you. I've spoken to Jeff Mann. I've spoken to Dr. Collier. I've spoken to Dr. Cascone. I've spoken to Chris Damari, and he's a coach and a wonderful person in this community who makes every child feel welcome. Mr. Wall, I've heard you passionately describe the problems with mental health, that masks were actually really keeping our children from succeeding mentally. This is a board who knows the problems that are here in this town. And yet, for a second, you're thinking about limiting our children's access to mental health counseling. That you would for a second think that a law was made 3 years ago, Mr. Lebecci. This is not a trend. This was a law that was taken on. We're not asking you to change anything. You're choosing to bring this up, to change something. Right now, in this time, when the deaths caused by gun violence have now surpassed any other option out there. They've surpassed car crashes. We are going to allow children to go without mental health counseling. I have a University of Medicine and Dentistry degree in mental health counseling. This is my passion. I feel strongly, and I know many of you on this board feel strongly. We may have different opinions about transgendering and what happens later in their lives and transitioning surgically, but at this point, children need outlets. They need someone to speak to. We cannot cap that right now. And presenting this in a time when gun violence is surpassing all other deaths as our main perspective on the Board of Education, it's embarrassing. I need you all to rethink this and think hard about the child sitting at home, unprepared to tell their parents and has no one else to speak to, but perhaps that one mental health counselor. That is my concern. Thank you all.
Do we have any other speakers before we have round two? Please, ma'am. Thank you for waiting. That's okay.
Hi, good afternoon. Mindy Kim Liu, 9 Seminole Drive, Holmdel, New Jersey. I just came back from parent children conference tonight, so sorry for the late appearance. It seems like I know that there was a policy 5756 on the agenda tonight. And I wanted to ask you if you can excuse me, but can you tell me if what about the policy? Oh, it's a public comment. Okay. The fact that this policy was on the agenda was really concerning to me because I know that in this county there are 4 Monmouth County nearby neighbors. There are 4 school districts that have been sued by the New Jersey Attorney General: the Marlboro, Colts Neck, Manalapan, and Middletown. They have decided to pass this policy. It's a policy to protect the trans kid. Historically, our schools are a place where all the kids should be protected, obviously, because it's mandatory they come here to learn. It doesn't make sense to require the teachers, counselors, principals to report the trans kids' sexual orientation to their parents. It's really none of their business. It's no one else's business. I'm sorry. Let me put it a different way. The kids who are questioning their gender, junior high school and high school are the times where they're questioning. They know they're different. They don't know why. And so in this phase, if Holmdel is considering outing the children to their parents, it's going to devastate them. It's going to be very harmful to the kids if we pass this policy, which is what I'm assuming we're doing, because why else is this policy up here? And second of all, as a Holmdel resident, tax-paying Holmdel resident, I am concerned why this policy is even on the agenda. Okay, academics, about 20, 25 years ago, from what I've heard from my neighbors, it was like number 3, number 4. Okay, you guys are doing well given COVID, but why are we talking about this? Why are we talking about book banning? Who is asking this? And every time someone is here, they keep saying, we want it. The parents want it. Nope, I am here. My neighbors are here. All these folks are here saying, why are we doing this? Why don't we, as a school board, focus on education and leave politics out? Okay. Know your right, by the way, know your right, protect your kids is part of a political organization called Moms of Liberty that was started in Florida that swept through the South, and it's now going through the South. It's taking hold in New Jersey. It's taking hold in upstate New York. We don't want politics in the board. We want you guys to work for our kids. We're spending millions of dollars. We have a state of art. We have the best institution. Forget about Middletown North. Forget about Marlboro. We are the best. So why are we talking about, right? Someone else's some kid's sexual orientation when that kid is required to go to school? Why are we singling that out? Don't you think common sense tells you that if there's a policy where a kid cannot talk to a teacher, cannot talk to their friends, cannot talk to their counselors about their sexual orientation, don't you think that it will create a culture of fear and marginalizing those kids who are the most vulnerable population in our society? It's 2023. We don't live in Africa. We don't live in Middle East. We don't live in places like Philippines where it's required that they jail you, where they out you, where they marginalize you, where they kill you. Uganda, it's all over the news. Why are we in 2023? New Jersey, Northeast, a blue state, really? Why are we trying to out the trans kids when they're required to go to the school? All right, these kids, don't you think that it's going to create a culture of marginalizing and bullying? Okay, so I hear that from parents who are worried that, oh, this might influence my child to turn gay. This might make it okay for children to turn gay, right? That's what I hear, and I hear that fear. Well, you know what? Read the science from real medical associations. They will tell you that that is a myth. Gay children, while there may be some people exploring in college and so forth, they don't choose to be gay. It's dangerous to be gay. In 2023, their lives are in danger. And I do want to say, and I really feel compelled to say this, as I sit here and I've been watching the Board of Ed videos where some of our board members are calling gay kids gender dysphoria. I'm so sorry. That is so offensive. They do not have mental health illness. Gay kids, lesbian kids, bi kids, gender questioning kids, medical school. There are people who with medical degrees in my household, and they teach them in medical school that they are kids who are biologically different, that's what makes them gay. That there are measurable biological differences. Maybe they're deformed, underdeformed, or in lack of hormone or hormonal balance. So this term of gender dysphoria is actually a term that the Moms of Liberty, Protect Your Children, fresh schools who are now called New Jersey schools are saying, encouraging others to use, okay? That is so offensive. We do not live in the South. We do not live in the Midwest. We are a Northeast modern city right next to New Jersey, right next to New York City, where many of us work, many of us live. There is no place in 2023 in Holmdel where we're going to out and cause some kind of difficulty of any shape or form for kids just for going to school. We need to protect these kids, okay? The question is, are we going to, are the gay and lesbian kids and questioning kids, are they required to go to school? Yes. Are there bullying of these kids? It's reported, it's well known that it is. And the suicidal rate of these kids are the highest. You might not accept them. You might not want your kids to play with them. But you know what? There are many other parents where it's absolutely okay to do that. Okay, so if you want to keep your kids away from the kids that you're not happy with, that's fine. But please do not make a decision that affects all of us. Okay, that's one. Second of all, I have heard that there was a book that was banned called the Diary, the Diary of the True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Alexis Sherman. I know that book was eliminated from the curriculum, right? And that was it? I heard that it was removed from the library as well. I wanted to know, has anybody here read that book? Because I know it was removed. Okay, there was a parent here asking to be removed. There was a Board of Ed member, right, who has spearheaded its removal, and it's been removed. Has anybody here even read it? Okay, you read it. You read it. Okay, great. Did you? I don't know if you read it before. There was not even a vote here.
I'm sorry, this isn't a discussion back and forth.
Okay,
You could just,
sure.
you know,
Well,
complete your
I want to,
comments.
sure. Okay, so
Thank
I
you.
want to just say that I read it too, because I cannot believe that this book could be so bad that this Holmdel Board of It decided to remove it. I will tell you that the masturbation topic that father talked about as a reason for its removal, very few it was mentioned very few pages just in passing. It's about a Native American boy who lives in reservation, and I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I'm sorry. So okay, I'm gonna focus on the
We didn't
board.
vote on that. The kids voted.
Can we, you've been at the mic
No,
for a while now. Can we
The
finish
students
up in
said
the next
they were
minute?
uncomfortable
Yeah.
reading the book, and
I
that's the
think,
reason. the
can
book
we
was
just
removed.
verify
Yeah.
one thing though?
No,
She
let her
should know
finish her
this.
comments, and
Okay.
we can have this
Yeah.
discussion afterwards. So
Excuse
please
me,
finish up.
Sure. Dr. Cascone said that he took a survey and 50% of the kids voted that book as their favorite book. And despite that, it was removed. When I read the book, there were a few pages just mentioned in masturbation, but it's overwhelmingly about a Native American boy who lives in reservation. Okay, I'm being half-gold here. Can I finish?
Yes, please, please.
And he was told by multiple teachers that his only chance in life is to get off the reservation and go to an all-white school, which he did. It was the nearest high school that he attended. There was a wide wealth disparity. So he didn't have transportation. His parents didn't have gas money to get there, but he made it. Through going to that school, he graduated as a #1 kid, valedictorian in that school, graduated and became an author and made it. That is what the book is about. So I wonder why the book was banned when very few pages, there was absolutely no hanky-panky going on. There was no sexual or sexuality, anything of that kind. But it was a book about a Native American kid, his lived experience of racism and discrimination and his poverty and hopelessness on the reservation. And he gets out by going to an all-white school, befriending some people, having a white girlfriend, and yet that book was banned. And I want to ask you to bring it back because the basis for its removal, that it had masturbation, it's untrue. There was very little of any disturbance of any offensive content. So I want to ask this board to bring it back, okay? Because I don't know why it was removed. When 50% of the children surveyed voted that book as their most favorite book. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Comments? Dr. Cascone, if you wanted to. Just
Sure. I just want to, though it's not typical to do a back and forth, I just feel like it's a timely opportunity for me to respond to that question. So initially with the book in question, yes, there were concerns raised by a member of our parent community, which were members of the board that raised concern among certain members of the board to have a better understanding of this book, right? So that sort of precipitated a process where, under Dr. Irwin's leadership, we engaged in a process of evaluating this book, which involved a number of different things. But as you alluded to, ma'am, the administration of a survey to our students. When reviewing that survey data, and you're right, actually, interestingly, 50% of the students did indicate that it was their favorite book. But what was really concerning to me as the superintendent and others was in the feedback that we received from quite a number of female students, of girls who read the book. And this wasn't one-off feedback from maybe one or two. It appeared repeatedly in the feedback that we received from a number of female students, pertaining to really being uncomfortable with the book, uncomfortable not only with that particular passage to which you alluded to, but actually I provided copies of the book to the entire board. Mr. Wall read it on through Kindle or something like that, or Audible. But all the board members received it.
2.5.
Is that right? Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. But really feeling uncomfortable with what was, repeated references to sexual activity. They felt that the book was objectified women. They were uncomfortable with the fact that the author was a convicted sex offender or had been convicted of sexual harassment or sexual abuse or something of that nature. And so up until that point, truthfully, I was sort of on the fence about the book. And I was really planning on deferring largely to the practitioners on the book. But when I read that feedback and I read the reactions and the feelings that it engendered amongst our female students, I said, you know what, we can do better. We can find titles that honor that particular theme of that unit, which is really, the idea of different types of lived experiences and identities and things of that nature. Because I do think that for our students, many of whom are very fortunate to grow up in this town, that kind of perspective is important and it's helpful. But we can do that. We can accomplish that educational objective without content that's going to cause those kinds of feelings among students. So you're right in the fact that the board never put it to a vote, because prior to the board having a vote on it, basically my recommendation was for us to find an alternative title. And if you actually go back to that meeting, and I don't know the date, I can't recall the specific date of that meeting, you'll hear me state that in public as to what the reason was for that. So that was really the rationale for ultimately looking to identify an alternate title that accomplished the same objective without making young women feel uncomfortable. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Ma'am, we can.
Good evening. My name is Conchetta Taylor. I live at 6th and A Court. It's in regards to this policy 5756. It does state, as Mr. Lebecci said, let's just get, right to the point. It's about removing parental rights. And I've been a resident of Holmdel since I was 6.5 years old. I am now 43, so you can do the math. And I grew up in this town, and I can tell you firsthand, many kids, excuse me, many kids, whether it be through middle school, through high school, we have either known that they were gay, they didn't come out of the closet as quickly as they wanted to. Not once was there ever a child in this school that has been bullied, threatened, has wanted to commit suicide over any of this information. This policy is just is taking our rights as parents away from us. Yes, it was created in 2019. Let's not forget a wonderful pandemic hit us in 2020, 2021. Kids just recently got back to school with no masks and everything. So yes, this slid under the radar. This got passed under the radar, under parents' eyes without it being noticed. We see it. Now that parents are starting to get more involved in schools, it seems like school districts don't like that. They keep pushing back on us. We just want rights as parents. We don't want them taken away from us. These are our children, okay? And it has been stated numerous times tonight that if my child needs, and listen, I have a daughter who has an autoimmune disease, okay? She is 12 years old. I give her permission to take Motrin to school. Do you know that I got called in by the nurse and they told me my daughter cannot administer Motrin to herself? Okay. So yet you guys want to keep something as gender identity away from me, her mother. I will tell you one thing. Growing up, I was the biggest tomboy. I had two older brothers who always had their male friends over the house. I always wanted to be a boy. I always wanted to play with the boys. I wanted to do everything a boy did. Let me tell you something. When I got my period, I did not want to be a woman. Okay. Now, if I'm this teenage girl who goes into the nurse's office and starts saying, I don't want to be a woman because I'm getting my period. This stinks. I wish I was a man. Now they're going to direct me to a certain other department of people to talk to. I am so proud that I'm standing here as a woman today. Okay. I'm glad I didn't have all these influences coming at me left and right saying it's okay for you to be a boy. We'll get you this treatment if you want to be a boy. Because what's going to happen is if this gets passed, you give them an inch, they take a yard. This gets passed, what's going to get passed next? then what's going to happen? Then it's going to be okay for our children to start taking hormone replacements without the parents knowing. So you have to stop it now before it gets to that point. Because if it gets to that point, then what are we going to do? Then it's too late. Then you're castrating our kids. Then they're getting breasts cut off. And we know absolutely nothing with what's going on with our kids. So please do the right thing. And to protect our children is to go against this policy on all means. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Nina Decker. I'm at 39 Stony Brook. I know some of you. So I am a super involved parent, the people who know me. So my daughter is in first grade and she is disabled. So Colette has cerebral palsy. She's legally blind. She's microcephaly. She now has seizure disorder. And when I read this, so I am for 5756 because I'm here as a mom who's looking for support to protect my child, right? I call Dr. Cascone on a regular basis. I'm with Amanda all the time. When I send Colette to school, I'm looking for a place that is safe. I want to know that she's supported. I want to know that she's going to make friends. I want to know that they're doing sensitivity training for Colette's peers because Colette can't see faces, right? So we have discussions on what we're going to do so that Colette can make friends. So whatever mental health issues we're going to come up with Colette, right? Because she's only in first grade, we have a long road of where we're going to go. But children with cerebral palsy, children who are legally blind, they have hard times connecting. Mental health is a large issue for children who have cerebral palsy. The future and the challenges that I'm going to face come middle school, come high school, right? We have a sixth grader. I hear kids are having sex already. I hear that there's gay kids. I hear that there's transgender kids in Indian Hill. So when I read this, and I know that at the top it says transgender student guidance for school districts, but how does it start? The New Jersey law against discrimination makes it unlawful for schools to subject individuals to differential treatment based on race, creed, color, national origin, ancestry, marital status, domestic partnership, civil union status, sex, affiliation, or sexual orientation, gender identity, expression, disability, my daughter, and nationality. This also protects Colette, okay? This is protecting our Black population, our Hispanic population, our Asian population. This is not just, this is trying to make Holmdel a safe community for everybody. The words that we should be talking about are safety for inclusion, we love diversity, and our focus should be academics. So if we keep going down, so we go through the definitions. So number 2, student center approach. No, maybe it's not the one I wanted. Sorry, not what I wanted to start at. Safe and number 3, safe and supportive environment. So it's free from discrimination and harassment. Colette's gonna have a hard future. She can't see faces and it's going to get weird, right? We're potty training and she's going to be 7. Her future is going to be strange. Her peers are like, why is she still in diapers? So the same discrimination and the same challenges that I'm dealing with as a mom, trying to figure out how I'm going to get Colette through school and how it's not weird for her to walk funny. We're going to be casting her in a couple of weeks. We're going to have 2 casts on her feet. That's going to be weird. Her friends are going to say, why is she doing that? So now imagine you're transgender and you have all these strange feelings and you're not sure where to go. School should be a safe place where the teachers and everyone make you feel wanted, make you feel accepted, make you feel part of a community. Didn't we just put out this new Go Blue, right? Isn't it all about citizenship? So safe community is important for me. Right here also, school districts must comply with NJSA 18A 37-15, which prohibits harassment, intimidation, and bullying, and require that each board of education develop and adapt an implementation of policy prohibiting harassment, intimidation, da 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 da. I'm concerned for Colette when she gets older. I'm concerned that it's going to be strange that has these issues and she's walking around with a white cane. And right now it's cute because she's only 6 and she hugs everyone. Every time you see her, she's hugging everybody. She's kissing people. She's handing out candy and treats and like that. When she gets older, what is she going to run into? And I need to make sure that the Board of Education and that the school is protecting her and that she's not getting bullied and she's not getting picked on and that no one is tripping her with her cane or something silly like that, right? Next, you get into activities. This applies to Colette, okay? So with respect to, well, this is gender, but change the word from transgender to disabled, right? I want the same opportunities. I'm constantly asking the team, what can Colette do at the school? She can't be on the chess team because she can't see, dance and anything like that. Like, I'm worried. And now that we have the seizure disorder, is she safe being left after school? Like, if everyone trained, we just had that conversation today. Is everyone aware what's going to happen if Colette has a seizure? So these things about being in activities, I have to worry about that for a disabled child. It's not just for transgender. It's how is my daughter how is she going to participate? I tried to put it on a soccer team. That was a terrible idea because she can't see, but she loves soccer, but in a small group. But it's like a bunch of yellow and a bunch of blue running around, right? But I and you as the school and everyone knows, I'm saying, how is Colette going to be part of this? How is Colette going to have the same opportunities as her friends, right? Isn't that what I say in almost every email? Colette deserves equal access, right? If she can't read it, if it's not big enough for her, that's not equal access. So I'm yelling and screaming, I'm taking tours, I'm taking pictures, I'm running around the building. How does Colette get the same opportunities?
Can the attorney please speak to the fact that her rights are retained under the law? Because I think it's really important and to your benefit and your students' benefit.
When you finish, I'll ask the attorney or the superintendent of schools to talk. Like we said earlier, there's 200 something policies in our district right now. And some have been looked at last week. Some haven't been looked at for years. It's true. But what I'll ask the superintendent or our board attorney to speak to is we have a discrimination policy. So a lot of the things you speak about would absolutely be a violation of law. So your daughter absolutely would be protected with or without this policy and would be, so I will please finish and I'll ask the superintendent to
what I'm
speak to
saying
that.
is, as a parent in this town, I want Colette to grow up in a school where transgender children have the same rights as she does. Colette is legally blind. You're trying to appeal this. Anyway, so use of facilities and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, the point is that Dr. Cascone just said it. We can do better. I do not think we should repeal this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tia Kolovos, 8 Canyon Woods Court. I really didn't want to get up because I feel like people are tearing down the reputation that we have in Holmdel. And we all moved here because it is equal opportunity. And we moved here because we are treated with respect and we're not jerks. The board, the faculty, the parents, we're not jerks. And we work together and we've always worked together. And some years we've worked better together than others. And we've got a lot done this year. And it's not always the same subjects that come up. And yes, the ones that have been coming up lately have been coming up for a reason. And we're coming together as faculty, as a board, as parents, as administration, and we're making decisions together. And not everyone's always going to be happy. And that's just the way the world works. But Holmdel works because the parents are involved. Not all of them, and not as many as I would like, but parents are involved. And it works together because the faculty, the administration, the board, and the parents work together. Okay. I want to know if my kid's sitting in school and has a problem reading, has a problem doing math, is having a bad day. And I don't want that to be a decision that any person has to make whether or not to tell me. You know, I'm sorry your daughter is disabled. Like, that's tough. But when you want to know if something new came up that you haven't seen yet, that maybe the teacher picked up on, like when you want to know, it's the same thing. We're not trying to take away trans rights. We accept these gay kids, the trans kids. Bill 5756 is not a one peg fits all. And it works in some districts, but we need to think about whether it works in Holmdel. And I have never had a problem coming to any of my school board members, any of the administration or the faculty about any issue I've had. And you know what? Everyone has always listened. Whether you like what I have to say or not, I've always felt like you've listened. And I appreciate that about you guys. I appreciate that you listen. So to everyone else who came out from other towns, good luck in your town. But in Holmdel, we do things that are good and right for our kids, whatever it is that we decide. So thank you very much for your time. I always appreciate it. I really hate getting up here. And I hope you think about your decision and you just don't decide based on, you know, a couple hours. So thank you.
So we're at 8:30 now. So I'm going to ask, there's a couple more people that like to speak. Let's do it. We have a whole bunch of items we have to actually do work with. I mean, not that this is important. This is a very good dialogue back and forth. It's very important. There are two sides to every coin. So it's very important to hear both sides' opinions and what everyone wants to do. I'll ask Dr. Gascon asked that the last speaker speaks to speak to, he gets final comment, right? He's the superintendent of schools. So I'll give him the final comment so that he could speak to how do we go about business today? How things happen today? What other policies and laws that we have in place that protect the children of this district, whoever they may be? So does anyone else that want to speak, please come to the microphone and, name and address and we'll continue.
John Giampolo, 43 Blue Hills Drive in Holmdel. I also appreciate that we may have a number of people here tonight that do not live in Holmdel. And first of all, this board should not be making any decisions that affect Holmdel Public Schools and base that decision on opinions from people who do not live here. I would also point out that, yes, while policy 5756 may have been created 3-4 years ago, well, so was Governor Murphy's new sex ed mandate passed in June 2020, beginning of the pandemic when people weren't paying attention. It's being addressed now because more parents are learning about it now. Why this kind of devolved into talk about people being killed in other countries or gun violence, I don't know. But I did hear one thing that was said by someone, I believe Ms. Mindy, that rang true. She said, you can do what you want with parenting your own kids, but please don't make a decision that affects all of us. And she was right about that. And that's exactly why policy 5756 should be abolished. Because if a parent, for whatever the reason, if a parent decides that that parent doesn't want the school to out their child to the parent, well, you know what? That parent can tell the school, don't tell me if my kid comes to school and says that he or she wants to change their gender. And all the other parents in Holmdel are then free to have their parental rights respected, and they are free to have the school inform them of anything like that. So don't make a decision that affects all of us. Let everybody parent their kids the way they want to. And when you think about that, think about it in these terms, maybe. Should a teacher have discretion if we want to talk about discretion. Well, if a child comes to school and talks about hurting themselves, should the teacher, the staff have discretion about whether or not they're going to inform the parent? If a child comes to school, if a child comes to school knowing that, and that child has a documented severe nut allergy, for example, child comes to school and says, I no longer believe in nut allergies. I'm going to start eating lots of them and I won't take my medication. Should the teacher or the staff have discretion not to inform the parents? But like you heard one of the speakers say tonight, don't make a decision that affects all of us. Let everybody continue, parent their kids the way they want to parent their kids. So everybody's parental rights are still respected.
Just a couple quick comments. Allison Lopresti, 49 Ladwood Drive again. I wanted to address something that Mindy said. Unfortunately, Governor Murphy has brought politics into our schools and we're trying to get that out of the schools. This is about parental rights. Let us be clear on one thing. We want all kids to feel safe and feel accepted, but not at the expense of taking away parental rights. There are much better and more productive ways of achieving that goal. I did have one more question though for the board and administration. If the policy remains in effect, how does the school handle communication about the student on official communications about the student, right? Like MAP scores or report cards? Are those records altered to conform with what the parent is informed of? Or does that, or is the communication in the form of what they identify as or their new assigned name? Just something to think about. Personally, this is not a wait and see issue. It's not something we wait and see what other districts do. We need to be proactive and just take a stance and make a decision for us and our district and our community. Mindy, Tom, and Wes were right. We need to get back to education.
Hi, I'm Sarah Booker for Greenleaf Way. I don't know if this matters or not, but I came to Holmdel when I was 9 and I'll be 49 on Saturday. So I'm not from out of town, just I've been here for quite some time. I think one of the issues that I'm hearing over and over again is this issue of quote parent rights. Now, I'm not a fan of the governor, but I don't think he's the one that brought politics to Holmdel board. I think Holmdel brought politics to the Holmdel school board. And I think that's very problematic. And I think parent rights is one of those kind of political catchphrases. But I'm also a teacher. So I'm a parent and I've been a teacher and I've been teaching for a long time and I study education. So I read a lot of studies and there are a lot of conflicting results that come out of studies depending on how the data is collected and how it's analyzed in relation to schools. But one thing, and Dr. Kilscone can correct me if he's seen different studies, but that relationship between a student and a teacher is really crucial, and it could really make or break a student's experience in schools. So it's important that students feel safe speaking to somebody at school, right? So there's studies that show that students who have at least one adult in the school that they can trust and speak to do better, even academically. I think maybe what we need in our district is some clear definition of what parents' rights are and what that means. On the side of teacher discretion, teachers have to have discretion to make decisions all day long, as do administrators. The teacher cannot call, and I'm saying it's hard for me as a parent to accept this, but the teacher can't call you every time something happens in class because things happen all the time. And it might not even be in the best interest of the student, the parent, the situation for everything to be kind of blown out of necessary portions. Anyway, my point is that these terms like teacher discretion or administrative discretion, maybe they need to be defined a little bit for the community, as well as what parents' rights are in schools. Because if a parent has all the rights, then they have to shoulder all the responsibilities. And to be honest, when my kid gets in trouble in school, it's on the school. It's not on me, So I can't exercise my right all the time but bear no responsibility at the same time. So I'm not saying that I definitely think communication is important. I communicate with everybody in the school, maybe a little too much. And I do think that in our district, we do have parents are heard, at least one-to-one from my experience. But as a board, as a district, you do have to make decisions that affect all the students. That's kind of like your job. And it is important to make sure that students feel safe. And I do think that parents need to be informed of major issues. So I would like to know if, my kid went to school one day and said, I think I'm a girl today. I would like to hear that. But I also just, like I said, I've been Holmdel for a very, very long time. And I can almost guarantee that if Johnny in so-and-so's class said that he wants to be a girl, we're all going to find out. Like, that's just Holmdel. Like, no, there are no secrets here, unfortunately. But seriously, I think that teacher discretion needs to be maybe better defined for parents. Parents' rights needs to be a little better defined. And I really don't want to see our district go into court over an issue that could be resolved at amongst ourselves with some more clarity. That's it.
Sir, you can speak, Ms. Singer. No, please. She's spoken already. You have not spoke, so please. And we're gonna wrap it up after Barbara here. It is 8:45. What we're gonna do is under new business, number 6 is policy 5756. I'm gonna move that to the front. So if there's board members on this board would like to speak, and it's not gonna be a dialogue. This is a discussion. This is our working session, but at least you can hear if they have comments, things like that. And again, I'll ask Dr. Cascone to basically sort of explain how we do it today, how the discrimination policy plays into effect, and any other rules and laws that we have to abide by. So please, sir.
Thank you. I wasn't planning on speaking. I just wanted to come and observe and hear. And from everything that I've heard, there's good.
Can we have a
points.
name and address?
Oh,
I'm sorry, sir.
Craig Betancourt, 5 White Birch Lane here in Holmdel.
Thank you.
Been here for 7 years, and part of the reason why I moved to Holmdel was for the school system. I have a 7th grader, just started 7th grade, and a 4th grader. I'm very involved in their life, but also in education. I think it's by far the most important aspect of developing. My dad was a school teacher for 32 years in Massachusetts, and it was always school first, sports second, and whatever, video games or something else, but it was always school first. And part of the reason why I wanted to speak is parental rights or teachers' privileges and discretion. What's wrong with just communicating, having an open dialogue, whether it be about a child taking medicine, child's sexuality is pretty important when you consider we can't even vote in this country until you're 18, yet we're allowing a 10-year-old to make this decision and it be held back from discussing it with the parents. To me, that's just, it's crazy. I don't want to belittle anything, but to me, it's just an open dialogue, and that's how they come to the school. They should be given a safe place to be educated and make friends. And I love school. I'd go back to college or high school in a second. But it just blows my mind that this has gotten so blown out of proportion when it's just a simple conversation about a very complex topic. And there's no way that a child and parent shouldn't be able to speak about this. And if it means there's 5756 should be abolished, amended, however it needs to be legally done, there needs to be some type of communication between a parent, a counselor, their child, whether it be a teacher, a mental health counselor, whatever we describe or make that definition of. It can't just be one size fits all. It can't be the round peg in the square hole and all these different analogies. We just need to come together as a community, whether it be administrators, legal, parents, teachers, etc., and talk about this individually, it's my child. It's my, decision to how to raise them. It's not the administration's to make that decision. Thank you.
All right, Barbara Singer, you're the last comment.
Barbara Singer, 5 Deerfield Road. I did speak earlier, so I'm more jumping around now to address some things I heard. I believe in, parental rights and not taking away parental rights. We had trans people in our district before 2019 when this policy was written. So, I mean, this is not new for anyone who thinks this is like new. I'm just like sitting back there wondering why people think like trans is like a new thing. I don't know if it's maybe those are coming from parents who have younger kids. So, I mean, mine are 22 down to 16. So I know trans has been in our district. We've made accommodations. We've been handling it. Everybody does have the right to raise the kids the way you want. And like an earlier speaker said, if you're creating that environment at home where your child is coming to you, and from the speakers on both sides, like it sounds like probably we're all here because we are involved and we are creating those environments. And that's not where the issue lies with this discussion. It really is about the homes where there's not all that parental involvement and where those parents are not creating that environment where the child feels safe. So that, it's kind of a focused issue to me. So on either side, I think the parental rights phrase was a brilliant marketing hook, brilliant. Because nobody's taking your rights away. You have the right to create that environment at home. Every day your kid comes through that door, you have the right to create that environment where you will get that information. The policy came out of the state. It came from a committee of people in both parties, educators, mental health providers. It came from a group that got together and put together, a policy with all these different viewpoints being thrown in there. I know, like another parent was saying, you're looking for a safe place in the school. When I came here, I had been a Girl Scout leader for years before I had kids. I wanted my kids in Girl Scouts because I wanted them to have other mentors. I wouldn't even be their leader here because you don't know, something comes up in their life where they don't want to come home and tell you, but maybe they will go to one of these other mentors you have given them. Just somebody talking about you, Chris, being a coach. I mean, could clearly happen to you where a kid comes to you because they feel comfortable and they want to tell you something, but they don't want you going to their parent. I mean, we're all leaders. We do so many things in this community. Everybody has multiple roles here. And we're putting ourselves in that position, not just on this board, but in many of the roles that we have in this, community. So we have to really think about that. To the people from the other towns who are here, we are more of a welcoming community than I think we're hearing. I understand people coming in from other towns, and honestly, maybe you'll say something in a way that resonates with somebody on the board and makes them think things a little differently, or at least weigh it in. We're a public school. It's tax dollars. It's not just Holmdel dollars, it's state dollars. So I was a little bothered by us putting off people, who were here from other towns. So at the end, I think I just want to repeat a question that someone posed earlier that resonated with me. Where can these kids feel safe if they don't feel safe at home? That's what this is coming down to. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for 2 hours of back and forth dialogue. I think it's very important for us 9 up here to hear it along with the administration. So what I would like to do, like I said, we'll move item number 6 of new business, and we'll even put it ahead of the old business. If there's any board members that would like to speak, we're not talking for 5-10 minutes. Just, if there's a few minutes of conversation and.
Can I just tee it up?
Absolutely, please. Thank you, sir.
I appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you, President Reddy. So I just want to give those who are in attendance just some perspective on what this looks like practically, right? And it does happen practically, right? Because we do have students who are transgender, as Ms. Singer indicated, that proceeded before when I got here. So there are students in our schools now who are, right? And To the best of my knowledge, in all those cases that I'm aware of, the parents were aware, right? And actually, in most cases, the parents actually sort of, might bring that to the school's attention and be seeking support and the accommodations from the school, and it becomes sort of a collaborative dialogue, right? Many times that is the case, right? Parents living with their children day in and day out, oftentimes tend to have an inkling of that long before anybody else, right? Um, you know, however, there are times when students will, more times than not, it actually is a school counselor more than a teacher. That's not to say that it couldn't be a teacher or a coach, but I can tell you that in the times that it is a teacher or a coach, the question might be, well, are you comfortable if we share that with your school counselor, right? Because teachers and coaches are not certificated to really engage in those types of conversations, right? And we talk to teachers about that. You're certificated to teach social studies. You're not certificated to engage in a counseling conversation. So we do tend to try and steer those conversations initially towards the school counseling office, and to get an understanding of, where the student is coming from. This is not there's not an advocacy from the standpoint of like, we agree with that, or you should do that, or it's more really just to provide a place where the student can share what their thoughts are, what they're going through. And sometimes in the course of that dialogue, because it is the goal of the school district, and Mr. Howard, you spoke very eloquently about it before, and I might ask you to weigh in here. It is the goal of school counselors, if in fact the student expresses trepidation or at worst fear about telling their parents, how to bridge that gap, right? So to try and get the student to a place where they do feel comfortable doing that, and if there's a way that perhaps the school district can help facilitate that, right? And I understand that there's central to that is trust, right? In other words, as members of the community, on some level, you have to trust that is the mission and the objective of the school district, that there isn't sort of like this, we're intentionally keeping it from the parents or encouraging the students not to tell their parents. No, the mission is, if the student expresses a trepidation to do that, is how can we get the student to feel comfortable doing that, and also understand what it is, why it is they feel uncomfortable doing that, right? The other piece I think is important to know is that certainly if we're talking, if through the course of that conversation, at any point in time, there's the sense that there might be an issue of self-harm at play, right? Either that the child is in danger to themselves, in danger of doing harm to themselves or others. The school, those counselors, the confidentiality that typically exists between a counselor and their client, if you will, in this case, a student, does not apply there. We are obliged by law to divulge that to administration, and ultimately, obviously, to the parents, in short order, to the parents as well. So, I can tell you, I can also share with the board that our counseling staff they have been, as they've been considering the prospect that there might be an obligatory parent notification put in place, they are pondering like what they would do in that situation, right? Like if the student expresses a sincere concern for their well-being, for their parents to know, and the students confided in them, regardless of how you feel about that, you might have an initial reaction to, who cares? I'm just sharing with you that our school counselors, that is a prospect that they've been pondering on. How do we handle that? How do I, when presented with that reality from a student, what do I do with that information when they've told me that they're concerned, right? And so what we've what we do as a rule is we try and resolve that concern to bridge that gap. And sometimes that can be quick. I mean, sometimes that can turn around in 24 hours, 48 hours. It might be a week, might be several visits with the counselor before that happens. That's typically the way it occurs now. So I just, I thought it would be helpful for the board to understand sort of the current practice, but I also do understand and respect that that there's been a loss of trust, and maybe not necessarily with the school district, right? Because at the end of the day, you place your children in our care every day, all day, right? I mean, that is a massive investment and trust in us that you do. And I think generally speaking, you're generally pretty pleased with the way we honor that responsibility, right? And that's really what's at play here, is a trust that we want you to know as well, right? We think it's important for you to know. But we also want to ensure that if the child is expressing concern about that we're doing it in a way where when that point of contact occurs, it occurs well constructively, and the student feels comfortable. So that's just the current practice. Whether or not that remains the practice, but that is how we currently approach these situations. So just with that, and I'm happy to weigh in further on in the dialogue.
Thank you, Scott. Board members, if you have any comments, I guess this would be the time. And like I said, let's try to be, just keep it succinct if you can. And, please feel free.
I have some comments.
I see Sarika. Yes, please.
Okay. I thank all the public for coming and making their comments, and I think every point of view is valid, and every parent wants what's best for their children ultimately. And it's good to hear points of view. There are a few concerns I have. First, we've moved from a stage of turbulence with an interim superintendent, and we brought on Scott a couple of years ago. We're going over a strategic plan, trying to get performance reviews of teachers, lesson plans in place, rankings up. We have bus transportation issues to deal with, and we have this anti-bullying agenda. We have given him quite a lot of things to do. He's doing them quite well. And I think for now, if we can just let him focus, just not get distracted by non-emergent topics. These are topics. See if you can let the ship cruise along a little bit and discuss this, because it's not an emergency right now. And give time to let this be planned, edited, or modified, as people said, with full discussion of parents and administration, and bring it up. I think that would give him enough room to focus on what he's doing and bring this side by side instead of dropping everything else and thinking of how to set this policy. Secondly, and this is the reason I want more time, because I've just heard in the past, first of all, I've heard this only 2 days ago when this came on the agenda. I was not aware of this policy being an emergent discussion. And I, for one, need time to understand policies. I can understand things very well, but I need time to invest and read about it and look at the pros and cons. And I've learned a lot from this discussion. So I need time, whether I vote yes or no, or give an opinion that might change some people's minds, or give an opinion that even if the vote is against my opinion, at least opinions expressed. I think every opinion needs to be respected. It is not just about getting a vote done and something passed. It's about hearing all ideas and coming up with a decision. So we need time. I personally need time to vote on this. And one of the reasons I needed more time was I just heard it in the passing when I quickly discussed with Scott, and I need more time for this. And it seems to me that even if this policy was repealed, if the policy is in place, teacher is not mandated to tell the parents right away. Even if the policy was repealed, it seems like they still are not mandated to tell them right away. So that part does not change, it seems. Again, I need to delve more into this, but we can hear from Scott. In that case, this whole discussion seems redundant from my limited understanding of this. And thirdly, I think our board represents community. And And we have community coming and speaking up. Some community members may not be speaking up because there's not enough time to read up on this topic because it was only presented 2 days ago. And every board member and every board communities members' opinions matter. I think we also need to take into account what administration thinks about this, what the councillors have to say. We can take our time and modify this without rushing into it. And also, we have an ad hoc committee formed to look at all policies. There are a couple of hundred policies, and we all realize that they've not been looked at. And I too volunteer to be a part of that. And on October 1st is our first meeting. I wanted nutrition and wellness to be the first one we look at, but we can look at this as well because we do realize that I personally also thought I can't vote on policies first reading or second reading without having any idea what they are. We have a committee to look at these policies. We might propose changes, but it'll be the entire board discussing it at that time. And then there are lawsuits going on, for having either, which I still don't understand very well because I need to delve into this more. But from what I hear, there are lawsuits against 3 or 4 townships that have decided to change. We can wait and see what happens and take a little bit of breathe. In my profession, we have a distinction between emergency surgery and elective surgery. An emergency surgery, we go full-headed because we need to save the patient's eye, in my case, or life in other surgeons' cases. But for an elective procedure, we take our time and plan to anticipate any preventable causes that we can prevent, any preventable problems that we can prevent. There are always unforeseen circumstances, but you want to have a checklist, go by it and go check point by point. I would think this issue is an elective issue. And I would like to give it the same commitment that any issue deserves, giving it a thorough thought and going over any preventable issues that might arise, legal or otherwise, and be ready and prepared to face them. And lastly, a committee of the whole, prior to this, when we used to have subcommittee meetings, we would focus a lot on the curriculum meeting, would focus on curriculum, and labor and personnel would talk about those issues, and we would present it all at the Board of Ed. And I feel the focus is being taken away. These are important issues. I don't say they're not important, but I've not heard much discussion on the day-to-day running of academics and curriculum because our focus is shifting away. And I feel this can be done little by little, by little more understanding, taking weeks, if not months, and make a decision. This is my position.
Thank you, Sarika. Anyone else on the right side of the dais up here? Okay. Mr. Jeff?
Yeah, so it's been said tonight a couple of times. I agree. I agree with you. We need to get back to, the gold standard of education. Pertaining to, 5756 and, I think we'll find a way to navigate this, but I can certainly say keeping secrets from parents is really not part of it. I do want to address one thing, I think Mindy said, and to my knowledge, no one on this board has ever mistook gender identity disorder, now gender dysphoria, for being gay or lesbian. I'm not sure we heard that. If you heard it in a meeting, you should probably go back to that meeting and listen again because that's, I certainly never said that. Oh, sorry. No, I was saying, to my knowledge, no one on this board, including myself, has ever mistook gender identity disorder or now gender dysphoria as being gay or lesbian. Certainly, yeah, I said you should probably go back and look at that meeting again and revisit that because that's certainly not what I said. So to me, this is simple. If a child expresses any mental illness in any capacity, the next stop should be to the parents. And it could be, if they're old enough, in the form of you tell them or I will. So more communication, not less, and between parents, students, and counselors.
Thank you, Jeff. Terrence or Chris? Or anyone?
Sure.
Thank you for all coming out. I think this is a healthy discussion amongst the community. We just proven the value of having a committee of the whole. If not, we'd be speaking behind the scenes and none of you would be part of the discussion. So I really applaud the board for making that move. I respect everybody's opinion and I really appreciate, I was listening to everybody. I just want to, I want to just point out a few things in regards to the injunctions. Middletown, Manalapan, and Marlboro, there's an injunction there because they actually tried to amend the policy. Okay. There's a big difference here. We're not talking about amending the policy. It was brought up to possibly consider repealing the policy, which is a lot different. Hanover's another township that was working to make changes to their policy. And in a testimony with the Attorney General, it did come out that this policy was not mandatory, which opened up a whole new light. And it was very uncomfortable to know that our policy writer, Strauss Esme, deceitfully told boards in 2019 that this was a mandatory policy. So I'm uncomfortable right off the start with that. I also want to point out that in California, just recently, a major federal court win where school districts are now on notice. Policies require teachers hide information from parents about their student gender identity actually violates the US Constitution. That was from Supreme Court in California. So parents have constitutional rights to know all things going on with their child. And we need to protect those rights. So to me, every day, the Holmdel School District sits here with a policy that's no longer mandatory or known to us to be mandatory. We are liable for that. Also, that we have a policy that's not mandatory, we become liable if there is a situation where the staff is speaking with a student about their gender identity and does not communicate that to the parents. If something does happen, those parents do have an opportunity to look into legal action against the school. So I do think you could put the term and debate emergency situation here. So I did want to point out that it gets confusing. I became aware of this policy when I first joined the board. It was very uncomfortable to see that they could, and also I do want to make a point here to one of the comments that came out. We love and respect our teachers and staff here in Holmdel. And this is not about any staff or teacher in Holmdel. I actually believe that we need to protect our teachers and staff, and they are put in an extremely vulnerable position if a child comes to them and starts speaking about their gender identity. Do I tell the parents? Do I not tell the parents? To me, I don't think any staff, just overall, not talking Holmdel, has went through any sort of training to help navigate another child's gender identity journey. That's asking a lot out of our teachers and staff, and I'm pretty confident to say there's probably some teachers and staff out there who hope to never be put in that position to make that decision if they're going to tell the parents or not. Now, what I will say is I already believe we have this in Holmdel, but I would always stand behind Holmdel being a place where any child can feel safe coming to a member of our school district and communicating to them about anything. Okay. But we're talking about gender identity and knowing that the school will be there for them to support them in finding a way, in being that bridge and giving them the guidance to communicate this to their parents when the time is right, whatever that may be. So I feel we should be teaching children that it's okay and it's important to involve their parents. We need to guide them as adults. We're talking about minors. This policy affects as young as kindergarten, okay? Kindergartners. All right, so I wanted to just get a couple of those points out there. In regard to the policy itself, there's a lot that they put in there and it creates a lot of confusion. So it took me a while to really figure this out as well. The law of discrimination and the anti-bullying Bill of Rights in New Jersey, if this policy goes, that does not affect the laws of our state. The Holmdel district will always comply to the laws of our state, and we want to. We pride ourselves, and I know we do such a great job at this, of creating an inclusive environment, a safe environment for all children, and we will continue to do that. But the way I would like to see is that would be in partnership with the parents of this community, who it's their children and they're paying the tax dollars for this school district. So I'm a big believer of parent involvement. But yes, I do want to make everybody assure that as a board member, I will continue to fight to keep the culture all inclusive and as safe as possible. A couple other things that were, and then I'll finish up here, but there were some comments that I wanted to tend to. You know, we talked about certain homes. I get it. Not every home is positive and there's a support system there. Personally, I think those are the children we need to protect the most. Those are the most vulnerable children that actually we need to get their parents more involved. Those are the ones we should be really helping to get their parents involved, all right? It made me feel that way even more, and not to bring this up tonight, but when I saw the vendor that we utilize for our health ed and the way they communicated to very young children, it made me feel like, wow, how easy is it for them to start communicating directly with these young children when their parents are out to lunch? Extremely easy. And that concerns me the most. So those homes, they need us the most to get them involved, whatever that may be. I also want to protect the child that just might be confused. Maybe they're just confused, a phase of their life, and some of them is coming out now that they're being led down a very wrong path by someone other than their parents. And by the time they figure it out, it's too late. So we do need to protect them as well. I know we talk about suicide. It's a very sensitive subject in so many different lights, not just from a transgender scenario that happens for so many different reasons. But in light of us talking about children going through gender dysphoria and being transgender, you know, there's a lot coming out, again, of children who were led the wrong way. They went through a transition. They found out later in life that they made a mistake. And that also increases the suicide rate in those children. So we have to talk about that on both sides, because I know that's a big defense. And I get it. We want to protect all kids from attempting or committing suicide. So I'll end it with this. We love all children in Holmdel, and we're here to support them in partnership with their parents and guardians. Policy 5756 does not dictate the culture of inclusiveness here in Holmdel. It's a safe space for all students, and this policy, either being in and out, will not change that. What I've seen over the last 45 years in Holmdel, and Terrence, John, and Kim can attest to this, they've been here just as long as my family. Holmdel mothers, fathers, and guardians love their children and want to be a part of supporting their child no matter what they're going through. When I grew up in Holmdel, it's such a special place filled with amazing parents, always there for their children in good times and in bad times. And now that I'm a parent here in Holmdel, I've seen that that theme remains the same today. You can log on to social media. You will see it clearly how much sons and daughters are loved by their parents in this town. Nothing should stand in the way of a parent-child relationship. And as a sitting board member, I do not support this policy in our district that gives the option to remove a parent or guardian from a child during the most sensitive times in their life when they're the most vulnerable and need their mom and dad to protect them. I can understand gender dysphoria. It's not an easy situation. However, I firmly believe that a child will have the best long-term overall outcome in their life when the parents and guardians are involved. We are not here to separate parents from their children. I do not need any more time. I'm ready to act on this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. No, you can.
Okay. Appreciate everyone coming out. It's, to me, a lesson in transparency. This was listed on a public agenda. We opened up a larger facility. We have about 4 times, maybe 5 times the average amount of folks here, and that's great. This 5756 policy was born from a lie from a company called Strauss Esme that sent it over with about 20 different policies lumped together in May of 2019, listing it as a mandatory policy. And back in 2019, it was very typical to have agendas sent out late. And in this case, I'll bet maybe 72 hours before board members were required to vote on what was represented as a mandatory policy. I was on the board then. This slipped through. Everyone voted for it. It was a mistake. Why? Because it's a fraud. I'll argue, and for everyone in this room, that this has very little to do with LGBTQ or any other derivative or any new acronym. Very little to do with it. It's listed as a transgender students policy. It's really a disenfranchising parents policy, including a war on women, a war on young girls, biological girls and their sports and all of their attributes and everything they've worked for. That's what this policy represents. To the positive, and there was a great deal of confusion from a number of the speakers, exceptionally well intended, and the First Amendment is really important, whether you live in town or not. But we take our guidance from the folks who live in town, but we do appreciate you being here. The policies, if you're walking down a boardwalk with your son or daughter, and somebody came up to you who you're somewhat familiar with, but not too familiar with, and you're having a conversation with your child, and they took their hand and said, "We'll take it from here." How do you feel about that? Most parents aren't going to feel too good about that, regardless of what the issue is. So we had this policy that was submitted deceitfully by Strauss Esme, which is reason number one. I do think it should be withdrawn. And we can craft something from the policy committee that's consistent with what we're doing in the schools. And by the way, adhering to the various laws that are on the books. There's a phrase called falsus in uno, falsus in omnibus, which is false in one thing, false in everything. Within the body of this policy, it has separation of the children from their parents in so many different places. And in the event there's a dispute, and if you haven't read the policy, not looking for a show of hands, but if you haven't read it slow, because you'll find that the folks on both sides to this issue, you'll come together with one voice, knowing that Strauss Esme has rolled most boards of ed in the state of New Jersey. It's basically a three-person group down in Toms River, making millions of dollars on the backs of Holmdel taxpayers and every taxpayer across the state. A monopoly, what I would call part of a legal education cartel. If there's a dispute with a parent, in the policy, the staff, they're supposed to rely on advocacy groups. Tell me which advocacy group. Maybe High Tops, the group that was brought in here that I fought against last year, and the group that got blown out, that has been caught on camera with their techniques of grooming kids. The ones I called radicals in November, and they're radicals now. I don't see too much activity from High Tops these days. I voted against their bills in this district. Why? Because they're trying to end run the parents to get the kids to connect with them online, to get them to talk to them about, I don't know what. That used to get people arrested. They talk about gender surgery, gender mutilation. You used to get thrown in jail for that, including the doctor, in jail. But that's okay. Here's something I think that's interesting. I don't know if the governor's a Marxist. I don't. But I will tell you, with a little help from ChatGPT, and we're going to probably pass on the AI update tonight because it's getting very late, transformation of family structure. Search your own resources. In a communist society envisioned by Marxism, the family structure itself is expected to undergo significant changes. The traditional nuclear family model, with its associated rights and responsibilities, may give way to more collective forms of childcare and upbringing, further challenging conventional ideas of parental rights. I maintain this has very little to do with your gender orientation, whether you're gay or lesbian, transgender, whatever the case may be. This is cleaving the parents, and that's the major principal problem. Again, emphasizing the law against discrimination is black and white. Civil rights laws are black and white. We adhere to those anyway. But if you focus on the policy, the way it's laid out is disenfranchising the parents. It's separating you from your children. That's what it does. And it has certain methods and mechanisms that rely on unnamed advocacy groups. And by the way, I heard earlier about the educators. The educators are fantastic. This is such a burden to put on our staff. Such a burden. But this is about separating parents from their kids. Another source, if there's a dispute, not a fight, not an argument, police weren't contacted. If there's a dispute with a parent, you're to call the New Jersey Department of Education Child Abuse, Neglect, and Missing Children hotline. Really? Again, this isn't about LGBTQ. This is about reformatting our society, disenfranchising the folks who love their kids most dearly. And the notion that we're worried about the fortunately rare event that there's significant discord in a home. How arrogant is it for us to have a policy that assumes bad intent by every mom and dad out there, or however your family's constructed? How arrogant is this policy, which was under false pretenses? It was a fraud. The company is Strauss Esme. That's the company who, by the way, we should absolutely cancel their contract. If we need to get a policy, we can rely on special counsel. So the board got suckered into approving this item. And yes, it's true. It has been there for a few years now. So the board members, I certainly appreciate everyone's opinion. We're in a democracy. Sometimes votes go up, sometimes they go down. But to have this policy, which sticks a knife in the eye of every mom and dad in this town, and by the way, jeopardizes the safety of the children. I dispute the notion that suicide ideation is a result of speaking to a mom and a dad. The issues that may come about from time to time, and I'm not in that field, so it's not my place to say, who is telling me that they haven't manifested themselves in some particular dynamic that needs that mom and dad more than ever? And then they get redirected to who? High tops who just got exposed as basic criminals, and they should be investigated criminally by the state of New Jersey. That would be a project for the Attorney General that would have actual value, instead of attacking the parents, however the family is constructed, because that's not the issue. Regardless of your family structure, these beautiful boys and girls, that sex was assigned at conception, okay? Let's also be compassionate with the facts, but they're facts. But we can be compassionate, and we do love all of our families and our children. It's obnoxious for somebody, as far as I'm concerned, to argue otherwise and to throw stones and hurl invective. I read one of the radical groups that was planning on coming today, I don't know if anybody's here or not, that talked about how the other school districts are inbred backwoods people. That's sweet. So most everyday folks, they don't get involved. Sometimes it's hard even to get them to vote, but they don't get involved because they're worried about their own family from the front door to the mailbox. You have policies here that want to separate you from your kids. And I heard earlier, I believe Conchetta was up. Why would it not be natural to extend a simple lack of disclosure to birth control, to genital mutilation is what it is, to all of the other things. This is a gateway policy is what I would maintain. I don't know if anybody in Trenton has a Marxist ideology, but God, it's ripped right from the page. Take a look. This is phase one. This is phase one. So we do have great policies. We have fantastic staff. And I would say to the kids, and I said this at a prior meeting, you are beautiful and perfect just the way you are. Just the way you are. Period. And we respect you just the way you are and however you are here. And what a resource of parents, moms and dads. And to sever that connection is the height of arrogance from Trenton. Really, how dare they? And their arms. The notion that there's not politics in schools, folks, there have been politics in schools for decades. It is infested and infected by Trenton politics. There's so many things a board cannot do. They're hamstrung by regulations. So I'll leave you with this. I'm very comfortable rescinding this. And by the way, a rescission today, if it fails, so be it. But a rescission today has a secondary vote next week or whenever it's scheduled, if there's a time frame to reschedule it. So from a process standpoint, you have an auditorium, a notice meeting, a listed item, some disagreement from some of the members as far as how this moves forward. I do think we could walk and chew gum at the same time. I'll stay here till midnight if we have to. This stuff matters. There are moms and dads out there that may be in an emergency and they don't even know it until the funeral, as we dawdle and consider and ponder and slow roll something that, if you really think about it, and I'll close with this, this is not about LGBTQ. This is about severing a beautiful relationship from incredible children and their loving parents, period. And the sooner this fraudulent policy is rescinded, the better. And if there are the procedures that are going on currently in the district, okay, let's pick that up and talk about it. And I would urge all the kids too, talk to your parents, reach out to your parents. They love you. If you're not sure about it, trust me, they love you. They want to hear from you. They are there for you, even sometimes when things are tough. That love is everlasting and should not be placed in the hands of politicians in Trenton. So those are my thoughts. And when the conversations are done, I'm interested in making a motion to rescind it tonight and set it for a secondary vote next week.
Any other comments?
I'll speak, Pete.
Okay, Kim.
Okay. So you guys had stuff written. I didn't write anything. So this is, yeah, well, it's usually what I do. I don't come in with stuff written. I like to listen to what everyone's saying and soak it all in. And I'm the moderate up here. I'm not left or right or anything. And when I've had discussions about this policy, and basically to me in this policy, there is two sentences that are really in question. So the first one being that the school district shall accept a student's asserted gender identity and parental consent is not required. That's first. I agree with that statement. I think that if somebody wants to change their gender identity, I think that because we should be a safe place for students, that we should accept that. The second being, there's no affirmative duty for any school district staff member to notify a student parent. So that I disagree with. So I feel like everyone is one way or the other, but I look at it like, so I work in special ed. So special ed, age 14, students are brought to the table to make decisions in their own educational program. And again, I don't know legally if, you know, where anything stands as far as what I'm saying, because again, like we really only started talking about this 2 days ago. Or well, Friday when it went on our agenda. So Friday. But so to me, even with that second statement, there's some type of, you know, at a certain age, you know, I'd like to see if a child is, you know, at Village and Indian Hill, that yes, the parents are notified, but at the same time, we also respect the student's gender identity. And then, you know, maybe when, I don't know if it's 14, I don't know if it starts at SATs, because again, as Sharika said, like I need more time and would like legal guidance, and, you know, to see what's even possible to create, but something like at a certain point that we don't have to notify parents. Expect, you know, and of course, as Dr. Cascone said, and I wholeheartedly believe, of course, that the process should always be to try to get the student to talk to their parent and to talk to their family member, whoever that might be, you know, that caregiver is. I have a high school, I have 2 girls, one's in middle school, one's in high school. And I have, because this has come up, I've asked them, how do you feel, how would you feel about a transgender coming into your bathroom? She's okay with that because there's stalls in the girls' bathroom. So she feels like that there's privacy, she'd be fine. Not okay in a locker room, right? She wouldn't feel comfortable in a locker room. So like, and again, this is just having open dialogue with my child. So like, it's, again, there's another, an area where, no, it's not, you know, it's not one way or the other. And honestly, that doesn't even matter because it's federal law and and everyone can go wherever they want. And I've taken advantage of that and gone to a men's bathroom because that line is always shorter or non-existent. So, I don't think that something that was put out to the public as a discussion item 2 days ago should be put to a vote. It was not listed as up for action. We even had an email asking, was it going to be put up for a vote? It is not here to be put up, in my opinion, for a vote. This is a working committee of the whole. If we were in subcommittee, there wouldn't be a vote to even question to be had. I think that there are a lot of parents that are going to listen to this over the next week and will come and we will hear more opinions next week. And I don't think that it's something that should be rushed at all, because I just don't feel that anything about this is black or white. That's what I have to say.
Thank you, Kim.
So thanks again for everyone coming out to speak. It's always great to see people here and to hear everybody's opinions. And one of the things that I take away from this evening is how many people got up to the mic and said how inclusive Holmdel is and how awesome our teachers and our staff are. So to that point, I do not think our staff is, quote, leading kids down the wrong path. I don't think that that's what our staff or our faculty ever intended to do. And it seems to contradict the fact that everyone up here, and I think most people from the audience, have said they have very open relationships with their teachers and their counselors, and everyone has been so welcoming and everybody has been so open. So, and to that point, I've talked to Scott, Dr. Cascone, pretty extensively about this. And he was very clear in stating that, yes, we have trans students here and we are not experiencing any problems. We're not experiencing any outcry from parents. We as a board did not receive any emails concerning this policy. And as it's working, it seems to be working really well based on what Scott is saying. So we have open lines of communication. Staff members, guidance counselors are speaking with families and students as needed. And it sounds like, according to Dr. Cascone, that it's running pretty smoothly here. So I'm really happy to hear that. I'm really happy to hear how many people said that, you know, our school is very inclusive. So I think that's like a pretty big takeaway from tonight's discussions. And I appreciate that Dr. Cascone filled me in on what we are currently doing here and how well it's working. And I hope it will continue to work that well. As far as the transparency part, and Kim had just spoke about it, this is a discussion point, committee of a whole. We are not making board decisions. We are discussing things, and our board meeting next week would be a place where we are passing things and voting, and this was put on the agenda as a discussion point. So if this board, we've heard over and over and over again from members of this board that we are trying to be transparent with our public. And if we are going to be transparent, then voting on something tonight we weren't planning on voting on probably shouldn't happen. That would not be transparent. So, so anyway, those are my takeaways. And again, thank you for everyone for coming out. We appreciate hearing from you.
All right, I guess I get the last mic, so I'll wrap it
I
up.
have a
Can I say
couple of questions
Oh,
before
come
you take
on.
on. I just,
You already spoke.
because I want,
Can I say something?
I have a question to the lawyer. Is this, as it was stated by a board member, is this true that we're actually sitting on like a ticking time bomb where every day there's a risk of us being sued? So it's you know, it's imperative for us to move, because is that a fact?
So what I would say is presently the board has a number of policies in place. They abide by the New Jersey law against discrimination. So from that perspective, and from the information that Dr. Cascone has shared, that relative to it seeming to be a very smooth process, it does not appear that you are in any jeopardy of being sued over the policy. I want to just clarify, and I think Mr. DeMare spoke to this, the 4 districts that are involved in that litigation actually changed their policy to require parental notification, which is what the AG's office went after. This is a different, just repealing the policy is a different situation.
Right. So keeping it is not putting us in immediate jeopardy. Repealing it will not put us in immediate jeopardy. So neither of them, you know, is immediate right now.
That's right.
I have another question for Scott. This is just to clarify this. If we repeal this policy, parents would still not have to be notified by the teachers immediately. You can take your time. I'm sorry, I didn't want to put you on the spot. Yeah.
I think the question is, and perhaps I would redirect this back to Catherine. Catherine, do you want to?
I'm happy to field that.
Okay.
If the policy is repealed, that does not affirmatively direct staff members to notify parents of any specific issue going on with their student relative to the gender identity discussion. So that is still then left in the hands of the educational professionals. I would go back and just mention that there is absolutely law in New Jersey that speaks to having to notify parents of any situation which poses an immediate risk of harm. If the student is speaking of harming themselves, harming others, there's absolutely a requirement that the district notify the parents.
So whether the policy is in place or whether it is repealed, the one fact of the fact remains that the teachers do not immediately have to notify the parents. So that part does not change. So since that is the part we're discussing immediately in detail, we can hold off. That part does not change. So nothing will change by changing that, since that seems to be the bone of contention today. So I just wanted to say that that is why I need more time, because repealing it or reinstating it makes no difference to that one particular part that we're discussing, where the teachers are required to notify the student and parents. So if not, then we need to consider why we are doing this and what aspects we want to change, and needs more consideration. And as you said, it does say that when the safety of the student is at risk, then they're obligated to disclose it. So in terms of genital mutilation or hormonal treatment, I would say that is a risk to the student. So they would be obligated to tell the parents. So it would be unlikely, it would not be possible that a child says, I'm going to undergo genital mutilation, and the teacher keeps it confidential from parents, according to this. So
I'm sorry, it's not this policy that dictates that.
right,
There's
right.
separate laws and
Several
policies.
Right. So that is not possible that a child undergoes genital mutilation, tells their counselor, and that counselor just keeps it confidential. So I just want to clarify that. And that is why there's so many concepts and misconceptions. We need to clarify things before we do what we need to do, what we want to do. I'm restating my position.
All right, P, can I say something?
Thank you, Sarika. Thank you, Linda. Leah, please, and make sure you're loud enough so we can hear you, please. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, everyone, to provide your perspective. I do think this put it on agenda is really in rush manner, and I do need more time to read through the policies and think through from all the comments, statements, and from the communities. And also, I think is like the school district, we focus on academic studies, and for this also provide the safe place for all the students, whether they are transgenders, they're gays, lesbians, they all need to have a safe place to study and and also I heard many comments regarding parents' right. I really agreed with one feedback. They said, what is the parents' right and what is the parents' responsibility, right? As a parents, you give birth to them, you raise them up, you put them into bed every day, you cook them, feed them meals, you check their homeworks, before they even go to school, how many years? And you know them more than anyone else. Now, even they go to school, right, from elementary to high schools, every day you stay with them. If they're so important things, your kids want to make a big decision about change their genders, they do not want to talk to you. They go to talk to strangers. And what's wrong with now we're not talking about the parents' rights. We should ask ourselves, what's wrong with our relationship with our kids, like why they do not tell us? Do I support them enough? Or, they are so afraid of me, do some reflections instead of, okay, my kids tell you they want to do something, you have to come back, tell me something's wrong. I have to that's my parents' rights. I think everything you think about the rights, also think about the responsibility. Did you do that part? Did you win the trust? So they can come to you, be a safe place. Home should be the most safe place for the children because they grow up there, right? But not every home. So that's why there's many other problems. I don't want to have too many opinions regarding this, but also regarding the transgenders and lesbians and gays, myself as a person and also as a parent, I will love my kids equally, whether they are, transgenders or gays or lesbians or equally, no difference. My kids, they have friends as transgenders, gays, lesbians. I love them. Welcome to be my kids' friends and to my home to be my guest. That's not a problem. So that's my statement. But regarding this, we vote on these policies. I don't need to go back to read it carefully and to say why we needed to change, which part needed to change, what's wrong with it. So I'm not going to vote tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. So I'll be very brief. I mean, everyone has basically said everything I've written down and have thought about for the last almost 3 hours. I personally don't love this policy. Terrence and I and Eileen, we were on the board 3 years ago, and he's right. There's been so many policy dumps. I never even knew Strauss Esme was a small, tiny little firm, and there's 200 plus policies. I'm the first to tell you, I don't know every one of those policies, not even close. I know a lot of them. A lot of them come up. I remember Dr. Kokoda last year brought up a policy for the salutatorian valedictorian because we realized the current policy we had wasn't applicable. It was wrong. It needed to be updated. So as things come up, when the cell phone policy came out a couple of years ago, because we realized things have changed with the cell phone, I'm sure we have to update this again as it relates to smartwatches now. I'm not sure how it speaks to smartwatches, but I know that's it's a I don't want to say a pain point right now, but as topics come up, because I know prior to 2019, sure there was lesbian kids, gay kids, trans kids way before that, and this district sort of kept going and was okay because of the discrimination policy and the other policies we have on the books and basic common law. So and originally it was positioned to us, it was a mandatory policy. We really don't have any choice when it's a mandatory policy. We have to enact it and enforce it. And then all of a sudden now it's not a mandatory policy. So so that's my comments on that. I do not think we should vote on this tonight because I think that would be disingenuous. That would be against what we said. This was supposed to be a discussion, and we had an excellent discussion for, God help us, 3 hours. And there's no reason nothing's going to change in a week. And I can tell you, like Kim, I'm an absolute moderate. I was an Army officer for so many years. I vote on each issue individually. I am definitely not a robot who's going to say, I'm going to do this regardless. I look at each individual issue and what makes sense to me. I'm a parent of multiple kids. I want my kids to be notified. I'd want my kids to come to me and let me know what's going on. I mean, I pay for all their bills and their clothes and their food and everything else. They live in my house. I'm like, I'm dad, right? I go to jail if all of a sudden I do something wrong. So I'd want to know those things. And obviously there's two coins. There's two sides to every coin. So I know everyone's going to have different opinions on those. That's sort of where I sit. But thank you everyone for coming out. I mean, we do have other stuff to go through on this. So I do appreciate it. I'm not going to ask for a resolution today. If it does, I'm telling you, it's not going to pass. So I definitely would not bring it today. Wait till next week. Absolutely vote on it next week.
Yeah, what I would suggest, assuming, good intent from the folks who would like to take more time to ponder the policy that's been here since May of 2019. If there's consensus to move the simple question to the regular meeting, based on the feedback from the folks on the dais, I think that's a reasonable compromise, and then simply vote yay or nay. And that's that. And just to tie it together, there would then still be an additional, perhaps if the attorney, can you just describe to the public the process, regardless of the policy? What is the legal process of policy making as far as approvals or rescissions and things like that? Because
Sure.
I think that may be a good compromise if everyone has consensus on that.
Yep. So it's really governed by your bylaws, and your bylaws require that you have two readings to pass, amend, otherwise change your policies. If you're going to repeal your policies, you have to have notice at two meetings in order to take that action. So yes, there's got to be, a notification that this policy is, or that you're taking action on the policy. It goes through its quote first reading, or in this case, I'm making an assumption here, guys, a motion to repeal that policy. That votes. You're going to have another meeting just to confirm that that is what the board's intention is. And the reason that is done that way is because policies take such precedent in boards of education that is the way this board speaks, and they want to make sure that it is taken in a very methodical, considered
And the
way.
method to facilitate that this evening, would that be direction from the board president? Would it be administrative, or do you need a roll call to add a question as an example?
You mean to add the motion for the board meeting?
Yeah, I would like to have the question added, acquiescing to the desires of the folks on the dais, to have the question on the official agenda.
So that would be, I believe that's just a consensus from the board to give a direction to the board president and the superintendent to add a motion.
Is that reasonable? Or do we not have agreement with that? So I'm just trying to, I'm assuming everyone's operating in good faith. Are we comfortable with having the question, whether it goes up or down next week?
I would like more time.
Now, I'd like to make a motion that we at least have the question
I'm
next week.
comfortable putting it on the agenda. That's my view
you wanna
for next
second that?
week. Yeah, second.
This is simply to add the question.
Chris is a yes. Terrence is a yes. I'm a yes. Eileen? I'm sorry? Okay. Sarika?
I'd like more time.
Okay. And Jeff?
Yes.
Okay, yes. And John?
Also a yes.
Thank you. And back to you, Eileen. Oh, I missed Kim. Oh my gosh. She's yes. I'm yes. Oh, and Linda, are you there, or would you be a yes to add this as a resolution to next week as a motion?
Let me go through this carefully, and I want to hear more from the community. I will say, give me more time.
So I guess I'll take that as a no.
You have a majority, I think.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for that. We will now move to other work, other stuff. Old business. I'm going to put a pin in this one pretty quick. So old business is new turf field lights discussion. Knowing that we still have not received any formal notification from the town, yes or no, whether they would be able to fund and how much and all those things. I don't really, knowing the hour, I don't really think we need to go into a long discussion about this, because knowing that the lights in the back of those fields really wouldn't be of use until April anyway. And we're sitting here September 20th. So I don't think there's a long discussion we need to have on that. And again, once Terrence and I and Dr. Cascone hear from the township of a formal yes or a formal no and what that number might be, we will report back out to the board. And hopefully by next week, we have some more information on that.
Board president, the one item, Dr. Cascone, why don't you go ahead?
Sure.
Just getting quick consensus.
Absolutely, yeah.
One of the, I think the point for consideration was the discussion of half or a third, right? So there was, and, getting a sense from the board so that we could go back to the township and say, this was the board's position relative to a share of the funding, right? So is it a yes, no for the premise of the district helping to fund the lights? And if there's a majority yes to that, then is there a majority for a third versus a half? Yeah.
Well, I just didn't know if we want to even have that discussion before we know what the town's intent is. Because I don't really, we officially don't know.
Right.
We've heard conversations and things like that, but until we actually have something that's, hey, this is exactly what we can do,
Perhaps that
could
could be something we discuss at an upcoming meeting.
Okay, yeah, that's fine, exactly. And we have plenty of time on that. I mean, if this is February President's Week, we're gonna miss our window getting lights in if that was the will of the board and the township before the spring sports start. So I know the administration and the
Can I just?
yeah,
Can I
please.
just
Okay,
speak
yeah,
quickly on that?
that's fine.
So, just to give some historical background on the lights, on the field. So every few years we get reviewed by NJ CUSAC, which is to make us, to hold us accountable, as a board, to make sure we're doing things properly. And the one thing we get dinged on consistently is that we are open more after school hours than during school hours, meaning that we act as this town's recreational facilities. So that being said, we have facilities here that our students have great access to and have benefited from tremendously. And then we also have outside vendors that are allowed to come and use them. So when the second turf field was being put in, the existing board at that time said, we will put the turf in, but we will not pay for lights. What we will do, however, is run conduit. So it will be easy for a user group, say, or multiple user groups to fund those lights. So we spent that extra capital to put the conduits in so that somebody else could then pick it up from there, because I'm quite certain we've done plenty for recreation in this town as a school, and we're not in the business of providing recreation. We are in the business of educating our students and providing activities in and around school. But we should not be doubling down as are the recreation department. So to the point of the lights, this is something that the user groups or the town have always suggested that that would be on them. And this board always agreed that that would be on them. So I am somewhat dismayed to see that this is something we would even consider taking on. To that point, multiple board members bring up every month how budget's a massive concern. That's a big concern for me because I got elected, and so I want to watch out for the taxpayer dollar. So I also have extensive concerns that we will be spending taxpayer dollars on something that's not benefiting this school educationally. Yes, it provides something, but as Pete said earlier, no coach is asking for lights on these fields. So no one within our educational system here is saying that in order to provide great education, we need lights on those fields. So I thought that was a very interesting conversation that Pete and I had earlier. And I just wanted to kind of give that background for the old business of, turf lights. Thank you.
Hey, Pete, can I say something regarding the lightning?
Of course.
I would like to see a report from the school district, how many classes we have in the school district use this field after 6 p.m. When we need the lights, or before the sun out that early we need the lights on that field. So which team are using, how many teams playing from Holmdel school district students, and which coach from our school is using. So if we can get the reports, and we have a more idea whether we use the resources efficiently or not, right? If we do not have any school programs using this field like after dark, and then why we need to put the lights there?
Thank you, Linda. I could ask Dr. Cascone, even though I think I know the answer. There's very few teams, if any, that are using the new turf field after it gets dark because there's no lights out there right now. But we can certainly talk to Rogie Field and things like that.
I don't
Yeah.
need time. I mean, it's zero presently.
I just have to say, just to be clear, I've always felt we should have put the lights in anyway. You don't build turf without lights. The neighbors are the back of the SATS building, the Parkway, and a parking lot for Garden State Art Center, or I'll call it Garden State Art Center. The other piece is that these are the feeder groups to our successful high school sports teams. So the notion that there's no synergy there, it's just not accurate. But I want to be clear, the board was not unanimous in its view, maybe a majority at that time. I do think that the town, that the flat budget you'll see next year is subsidized by the school board vis-a-vis the pilot that we don't share. Legally it's true, but there are ordinances that you can share revenue. The revenue for the pilot is about 20 million and growing. 65% of that, boy, that pays for some lights. So, I mean, I do think it's the same community. Everyone here pays, school taxes and, their town taxes. And you'll see consistently the town budget is flat. That's due to the revenue split that the school district does not share in. So I think philosophically, I think it's accurate. I don't disagree. I do think the town should fund that. It's 360,000 roughly. But whether it's 50-50 or a third or what have you, I think ultimately we get to a decision. But in the meantime, at least the district is able to keep a zero-based township budget on the pilot revenue. I mean, it's a different discussion. There'll be a little friction on that in the future. But I think Ms. Brimonti is correct as far as perhaps who should pay, but ultimately the kids suffer if they don't have those lights. And then, by the way, that's girls field hockey, it's lacrosse, boys and girls, it's football, soccer. And I do think that you build it, they will come. If those lights are there, they will be maximized by whichever groups that are in our district from K through 12. Thank you.
May I say something too?
Sure.
I think it's nice to have lights. It's nice to have many things, but we need to prioritize what we can afford, what we cannot afford, and be fiscally responsible. We're strapped for money right now. And every time we brought up lights, we kept talking about township or pilot money covering it. And granted, they should, they're not. So I think we are, our budget was, pretty tight for cash, and we were not able to provide some service to students such as MCVD school buses that, we have centralized buses. We had to go back and forth with many of those. And I think the lights can wait. It's again, nice to have, but I think it's something that can wait.
Thank you, Sarika. Again, I don't think we're in a rush, so my pin didn't really work very well, but that's it for that one. Terrence told me my pin didn't work. So let's do this. We're gonna, number 4, Scott, even though it's out of order, we're gonna sort of punt on the artificial intelligence for tonight. I don't think that's a pertinent emergency conversation we need to have. If anything,
yes, sir.
review
I'm
the agenda.
recommending, Mr. President, I'm recommending tabling waivers and AI.
Agree. Yeah, good. Thank you. And then we could hit the agenda. So if there's any items, and Scott could take this, any items anyone wants to talk about from the agenda,
Yeah,
please
so I'll
raise
just
them.
I'll just tee it up real quick for the board. I would say holistically, it's a relatively straightforward agenda. Obviously, you'll have you have a additional time to review it. You've had some time already. Excuse me. So if there were any items on the agenda that either the administrative chairs felt inclined to qualify for the board, or vice versa, board members who felt inclined to seek clarification from administrative chairs, feel free. Otherwise, obviously, if questions come up, we're happy to answer them between now and the public agenda, either by email or otherwise. So, are there any questions at this time? Administrative chairs, anything you felt obliged to inclined to qualify for the board at this time? And that's on the agenda? Okay.
That was excellent. So central office updates. So I think that's right.
Yeah, we'll work left to right.
Yeah,
Dr.
okay.
Dr. Earn, you want to get us
Thank you.
started?
Okay, good evening, everyone. Just a couple updates because we've been busy getting back to school and having back to school nights and doing in-service. So it's been a busy month, the month of August and the opening of school. So we successfully wrapped up new teacher orientation. We did 3 days with our teachers right before school started, before the rest of the staff joined us. And then we had an opening in service for all of our staff on September 5th. And we're seeking feedback from our teachers right now so we can continue to make professional development even better next time. And I think our next full day PD is in February. So it's until then, but we take it and we use it during the school day. Right now, we're in the process of training all our staff and administrators on our new evaluation system Frontline. We moved over from Genesis, so that's a work in progress. As you know, that one of the big goals for curriculum and instruction is about consistency and coherence and having that relevant experience room to room, department to department, school to school. Miss Lamaglia and I wrote Dr. Lamaglia, she's going to be a doctor soon. Miss Lamaglia and I created stock PowerPoint presentations for our principals so that we know that in terms of like core key information such as evaluations or assessment or anything to do with laws such as HIB or bullying or the behavior threat assessment manuals, that we're making sure that all staffs receive the same message the same way. So we've just been making stock PowerPoint presentations to turnkey to our building administrators. Families were emailed this week regarding our assessment calendars and local testing procedures. So that's up on the curriculum website. Feel free to take a look, but I've heard they've been very useful to families. I've heard some good outreach so far. I started a video channel for CNI. It's at Dr. Jessica Irwin. It's fun to say still. But anyway, regardless, that channel, we're going to just put updates continuously about news that's happening, resources for parents. Like I know I'm going to film with our literacy K-5 supervisor later this week, just about like reading strategies to do with kids. So it's going to be a lot of news of what's happening in Holmdel, but then also resources and things that you can do at home with your children. So look forward to that. One of the things that we worked on a lot last year was strengthening our building procedures and protocols related to our multi-tiered interventions of support. So that means our students who may be struggling academically or behaviorally, like what do we do to help them? So we send home communication to all families at Village and Indian Hill just regarding the process so that parents are in the loop of what measures we take when we are evaluating students for additional help services. We also plan on hosting a workshop for parents to get some FaceTime interaction with us and ask more questions in a more intimate setting. All our K-6 staff are being trained in our DIBELS assessment right now, which is another local assessment that is used for the purpose of diagnosing like what students need in reading to grow to the next level. So we're working on that right now. Our students all just took the not STAR, MAP or Linkit or Dibbles, what have you not. So all of that assessment information and that what we do at the beginning of the year really sets us up for the year forward. On October 2nd, we're going to be taking our AP Research and Honors Advanced Research to the AT&T Labs in Middletown for STEM lunch with leaders and luminaries. And this event is hosted by IEEE, which is the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. And they're interested in doing more partnerships with us for STEM activities. So thank you, Ms. Colleen. I really appreciate the partnership. And our district, finally, we applied for the high impact tutoring grant. So if anyone's been reading language, it's supposed to primarily serve students in grades 3 and 4 because the state determined that is who was most affected by the pandemic. So with those funds, we are looking to do a hybrid approach of using before and after school time with our current staff, and then looking at synchronous options for online platforms or vendors or whatnot, et cetera. But we want to make it something that is aligned with what we're already doing and doesn't feel like something extra. And that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Hey, just quick question for you. So is the Deebles Maze, is that like a different thing like Danielson? Is that like
No.
another-
It's a running record. So for instance, like if you heard like Fontes and Pinnell reading levels, it's a literacy test for the younger kids
Okay.
who are still like developing readers.
Okay. It's not replacing any other program that we have presently.
It's a better option of what we were doing with our running records. Yeah.
And so you didn't really talk about guidance, but just wanted to give a shout out, like, nice job by getting a boot camp done in August. And I know the Dr. Kokoda's new assistant principal is planning to do more boot camps with senior parents and senior students. And, doing it in July and things like that, just so if we have early admission issues and other things like that, we're actually ahead of it, as opposed to waiting until September 15th, what day that is, and when applications could be by August 1st or something. So I think nice improvement we're seeing there, and, look forward to that. So any other questions? I see a few red lights.
Just a quick question. I was
Terrence,
gonna, can all the departments set up their own YouTube accounts, or how does that work? I know we have athletics is like Holmdel Athletics, Holmdel Theater is, how does that work? Do we have a policy on that as far as departments or staff setting up YouTube channels, or?
Yeah, typically when, and YouTube is a form of, really is a form of social media. So typically, social media handles for whether they be departments or administrators can take different forms. In some cases, the handle is the department itself. In some cases, the handle is the person. But suffice to say, it's a good question. We should probably, as we increase our social media presence, establish some consistency in how that will work. But presently, there isn't a policy per se on that. It's a bit varied presently. You're welcome.
Ms. Kim?
So 2 kudos coming. Although I really want to talk about waivers, but it's okay.
But okay.
So first of all, and it's your department, but not you. Janine, I'm going to say your name wrong. Arciero. Did I say it right? Sorry if I said it wrong. I actually did speak to her and already gave kudos, but I want to publicly give kudos because I went to back to school night and a letter went home, and I have no idea if I'll get it at SATS too, because that's tomorrow. But a letter was given out at back to school night with the list of the novels that my kid's going to be reading this year. And then we talked about, kind of get out to everybody. So we already spoke about that, because only half the parents show up or whatever. But so awesome. I'm excited. Like, I was really happy with that. And then something else that I heard through the grapevine, and totally third or fourth hand, no joke, is that we have at Indian Hill a first of its kind of multi-sensory class for like kids that maybe are like more on the for tiered, like they're not necessarily IEP kids, but you guys somehow are running a multi-sensory class at Indian Hill for reading. And I love it because as one of my kids with dyslexia, and I think sometimes kids just need that extra push. And so those are my 2 kudos tonight.
Good job, team. They're
sitting right there in the front, but we're really working hard on how do we internalize our strategic plan, and thinking about parent communication and consistency and coherence is a really big goal of ours. So we're just thinking about all the measures that we can do up front to make things transparent to families and students.
Well, this was great because I didn't have to go search for it on a curriculum page or go through and, it was handed to me in one little thing and it was awesome.
Miss Amanda?
All right, good evening, everyone. As Dr. Owen shared, on September 5th, we hosted professional development for both our new and returning staff, and the Office of Special Services really focused on, in addition to content-specific department-driven work, we focused on mental health services, training for students with visual impairments, department articulation meetings, roles and responsibilities for our staff, as well as program updates for our self-contained classrooms. On the first day of school, we successfully implemented a delayed opening schedule for our preschool classrooms, which is the first time we opened preschool on the same day as everyone else. So I know, but it went really well, very successful for all our students and families. This school year, we've expanded our MAP testing to include resource replacement students in grades 7 through 9. We're currently already established in grades 1 through 6, but now we're expanding it to our 9th graders as well. As Dr. Irwin shared, all our special education teachers have also been involved in DIBELS trainings, administering them, the trainings, implementing them, and it's going really well so far. As well as all of our staff have access to IEPs, 504s, confirming receipt of them. And I'd like to add one additional piece that I did not add when I did this this update because I didn't have the final date. Our first special education parent advisory committee meeting will take place on October 12th. We're going to be focusing on executive functioning skills. So there'll be a presentation to parents. It's here at the high school at 6:30 in the library. Thank you.
Can I say something? So I want to say that number one, I love that the resource kids are finally being included in MAP. So kudos. And then very excited that finally preschool started with everybody else as they should. So now here's my next thing for next year.
Ready.
Speaking of starting with everybody else, I'm a related service provider. And I got, as a related service provider, 3 days when students were in 3 days. That's what I got. So I had 3 days of professional development and things in the beginning of, without students. And then I got 3 days with students where I was doing observations and working out scheduling and things like that. Here, related service providers didn't start till this Monday. So they got 3 days before students and they got 8 days. I think it's excessive. And I think we can do better. So, and I, to the point where like my own daughter asked, like, when am I going to meet my reading instructor? And that's like, that's coming from a 7th grader, but she was missing it. She wanted it. So I think that for next year, as we're writing annual IEPs, I think we can do better. That's my.
Guidance?
Yeah, Mr. Howard.
Mr. Howard?
Right. Good evening, everyone. From guidance, in accordance with our requirements as a Lifelines district, and Lifelines is a suicide prevention training that the staff underwent last year. We're coordinating a suicide prevention workshop for parents. That's going to be on November 1st here in this auditorium at 6:30. So that's November 1st at 6:30, suicide prevention workshop. I'm going to be running along with Ms. Langolia will be here. In addition to that, we also formalized the suicide intervention procedure for staff. We created a one-pager for that, and there's a link to that inside of the document so that the board can see it. And just a reminder, on October 17th at 6:30 here in the auditorium, we're going to have our HIB Law Parent Workshop. The same woman, the lawyer Sandra Jacks from NJPSA, who did it for us last year, is going to come again this year and present. It was very informative last year, so I would suggest people come because it gives you a lot of information about the HIB law that you may not be aware of. Right? And not on the list here, but I wanted to kind of thank the building level principals, Dr. Kokoda, Mr. Vitale, Dr. Christopher, and Mrs. Barrett for their support with the Live Blue effort. They've been putting these posters up in the classroom. Dr. Serio helped us get some bracelets, rubber bracelets that we're giving out to kids. So it's been moving along pretty effectively. I'd like to thank them for their support with that because they've been really good with helping me advertise. And in terms of human resources and personnel, all the faculty have been given the training through Vector. And besides the standard training that is required by the NJDOE, we also ensured that the staff had the required HIB policy and procedures training that we were kind of dinged for in our last HIB assessment. So to make sure that staff district-wide have that training. And also they've been assigned the mandatory 2 hours of suicide prevention training. Every 5 years, the educators have to do 2 hours of training. So that's provided to them through Vector. And currently HR is updating all of its job descriptions. We're going to be presenting those incrementally to the board as they're revised. And as Dr. Irwin mentioned in the beginning about new teacher orientation, it was a success. And we are now in the process of revising the mentor-mentee handbook. There's a link to that in there, which clearly lists all the state and district requirements. Our long-term goal is to revamp the whole program. And we're also beginning the process for doing our new teacher academy. So more information is going to be coming on that as well. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Mr. Allen.
Sorry, I got something to say. I know,
Great.
sorry. I didn't know, but I just wanted to mention PBIS because I went, I've been to 2 back to school nights. I saw signs everywhere, loved it. Wondering, even have, my SATS has already gotten some PBIS tickets or, whatever. So like, I love it. I'm wondering, does every school have poster printers? Because the signs aren't big enough. I want to see them bigger. Like some of them in the classes are just like, a regular 8.5 by 10 piece of paper. And I really want them bigger. And then I'm thinking, well, if every school in my district, every school has a poster printer. And then I'm thinking that would be a great mini grant. So, so I'm just wondering, like, do we know does somebody know does every
Every
building
school
have it?
except for SATS, I believe, has one.
Okay, so
A
mini
poster
grant for
printer.
SATs. Okay.
But SATs can probably borrow. If I know Mr. B, he probably allows. The
Well, yeah, he
SATs
made
kids
some
to
of the larger
collaborate.
posters, for me. I think part of the issue is the cost on paper. I know that when I tried to go to Staples to see how much their cost, like a large poster laminated is like $80 a poster. So I think that the paper was the initial problem of printing the larger size ones. So the decision came down to make, not the 8.5 by 11, but I think the 11 by 14 size so that the teachers can have them in the classroom. But the plan is to get larger posters put around the district.
Thank you, Art. So our ABA, Ms. Jessica.
I'm going to savor the fact that I have a short and sweet update.
Thanks, Mike Petrizzo.
It's probably the only short and sweet update we'll have all year. So our auditors are scheduled to start their field work at the end of October, and our team is in the middle of just gathering all the preliminary data. And that's my update.
Well, you can go right into buildings and grounds and transportation then.
Yes, we have Ken coming up
Okay.
right now to
All right. Thank you, Mr. Stromsland.
Good evening. So at some point, if you want to pay attention to the side over here to my left, there are extended pictures there, some before and afters of some of the projects that we're completing and that we're talking about. Give you a little bit better idea of what we're really discussing. They're kind of interesting. So renovation for the Village 2-3 library is complete. We were able to create 2 classrooms with an additional included and more contained and efficient library area. Renovation for the Indian Hill Music Room B is also complete. The floor, ceiling, lighting, acoustics, sound system, visual presentation systems, cabinets, and furniture have all been completely renovated. And they're expecting to also receive new instruments in the next couple of weeks. The new security system for the high school entrance is also complete. And as you'll see in some of the pictures here, the Bound Crawford House has been scraped, painted, caulked, and painted. New shutters are on order and are anticipated in the next 2 weeks. Finally, and I think this is really important to report, that through a grant and a survey through the New Jersey Department of Health, we were fortunate to be able to acquire freestanding air purifiers, which were placed in all our district classrooms. These are units, self-standing, freestanding units that each have 2 HEPA filters, 2 carbon filters, and an ionization unit. And they're providing an assist in providing superior indoor air quality. This just adds another layer to our already robust IAQ systems throughout the district. And that completes our.
Ken, do you know, was that grant back from like COVID days?
No.
Did it take, or was it a more recent grant that we
No,
applied for and actually won it or got it?
It was actually a grant and survey very recently through, oddly enough, the New Jersey Department of Health, and then of course through the DOE. It was a very short run survey, and you had to participate in a matter of days. It didn't seem like something that Holmdel would qualify for.
Right, but
Based
hey.
on things like that. So we didn't anticipate really getting very much. So we put in for everything
And got it.
and we got it.
So you're guessing those air purifiers worth 100, 200 bucks each,
They're
give or take?
worth probably around $600 a piece.
So people could do the math for 600 times 355. So kudos to Mr. Stromsland. Obviously, with the flu season and everything else that's coming, and every year there's the flu, I'm sure hopefully some of these things can help curtail, make, lives better for the kids and things.
And we also were able to acquire 6 additional sets of air filters for each of the units. And based on the hours that they would be used, that's about 14 years worth of filtration.
Wow.
So, and the filters run about $100 a set. So,
Wow.
yeah,
That's awesome.
it's very unusual that we were able to come into this, so. it
We're
worked
present. I
out
just have
very
a
well.
couple quick things.
Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I just
Oh.
want to thank the.
Yeah.
right?
No,
Oh.
no, please.
Thank the team for getting Addie Lubkurt's homestead painted and caulked and getting that all going. I think it's great. I think they're waiting for the shutters. You may have said that. I wasn't sure.
Yes. we're on
Yeah.
our way.
So that's really great. At some point, the board should, contemplate the future use. It would be great to have CPAC involved, in my view, and starting to work on, programmatics, maybe perhaps working with the Duncan Smith Theater and see if that could be just a wonderful area for the arts. Also wanted to congratulate and thank Dr. Cascone and the administrative team, Principal Kokoda and Vitali. I was at 2 of the back to school nights. They were great. They were run fantastic. The staff is fantastic. And it was really great to get an understanding and appreciation of really what they do every day. And so that was really wonderful. I did want to ask, the temperature, was that an anomaly? Because it was a bit warm? Do you get many work orders for rooms that are either be they cold or be they too warm? How is that
Yeah,
all?
What happens is now, especially, Like this evening, for example, the outside temperature
Mhm.
is a lot lower. So you can't really lower the temperature of the overall system
Mhm.
too much because it's obviously impacting by the outside air. And if you have it registering too cold, you can get a freeze up of the coils. So it's that in-between weather that sometimes gets a little difficult to exactly program inside depending upon the crowd.
Okay, and I thank you for that. I appreciate that. And thank you again for honoring Holmes' legacy and the board. It's really, really looking great.
Good.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. And
Thank
that's
you.
$213,000 grant basically for those 355 air purifiers. That's awesome job. I think the last item we have on the list is transportation, which I'm sure Lara Carucci isn't here. So if you want to.
Yeah, she gave me
Yeah.
a brief update. We had a really good start to the school year. We had a couple of minor timing adjustments that we made in the last couple of days. And then with regards to the vocational routes, members of the transportation department were present at the high school. They still are every day to make sure that the high school students are able to get off of their bus and onto their respective vocational routes for their shuttles.
And I know it's a bit early, but what's the typical bidding schedule for the board goal for revised start times in high school? Because there's an estimate of savings, 700, 900,000 or so. What's the, if you're familiar, if you're not, it's okay.
I'd have to follow up with
Okay,
Lara just to
okay.
find out.
Okay. Anything on that? No?
All right. Brings us to the last item. So it's Crawford Hill collaboration. So with respect to the township committee, just wanted to say, we wanted to go on record that the district administration, the Board of Education is very aware of the discussions around the property and very much interested in working and supporting the project. Should there be an education component to it? It's premature a little bit as a board to discuss this matter further because we know they are in negotiations right now for that property. So we don't want to jeopardize anything that's going on from that, but we just wanted to make sure that the township, which they do know, because I believe we have a meeting or a call tomorrow with them to discuss possible things we might be able to do, but it is very early and we want to let them, do their business and we'll stay in their lane and they could handle their lane. So that's it for that item. We don't have to go in executive session. The only new business I would ask, Dr. Cascone, next year meeting schedule. When do we have to figure that out? That's soon, right? Yeah. Isn't that like in the next month or two?
Yeah.
Just something to put on, just something else. Like someone asked me and I wasn't sure.
Tend to, typically what happens is we set the reorg, but because go ahead, Catherine.
Usually that board meeting schedule is set at the reorg, but
And we got the reorg date.
yeah.
All right. So seeing it's it's only 10:30. We're doing good. I don't have any other items. If any other board members have anything else, please chime in. If not, I would ask for a resolution to adjourn.
Motion.
A motion, excuse me.
Move.
Getting a little late, tired. Can I get a second?
Move.
I'll be a second. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much for coming out. No gavel. Have a good night. Be safe.